Please note, for maximum picture quality, it may be necessary to adjust the tracking control on your VCR.
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
Look, up in the sky! It's a bird! It's a plane!
No, it's Adjust Your Tracking, a podcast where we're on an adventure to watch a century of cinema decade by decade, year by year, and I am one half of your host, Liam Delaney.
And I'm Oliver Jones.
No, he's not. He's mild manner reporter.
Hey, don't tell people my secret identity. Animator by day, superhero by night.
Yeah. You put your large coat on and you hunch your back. You put your big glasses on. And no one has any clue.
On. I put a different hat on when I'm a superhero.
Yeah. It's not a baseball cap.
Yeah, it's a beanie with a bobble hat. I'm okay. You alright?
I'm okay. The weather's bloody awful.
I know, it's a bit miserable today, isn't it?
Yeah,
apparently it's going to be like this all week.
Oh, great. That'd be perfect.
It's ironic because I'm doing another stop motion video, and the last time it was during a heat wave and all the plasticine melted, and now it's really cold. Plasticine doesn't like cold either, and it just goes really hard.
Oh, and
then it's even harder with it. So it's like you have to. It's like gold. Plasticine's like Goldilocks. The atmosphere and the temperatures just has to be just right.
Has to be just right. It's like that's so annoying. And I bet you like most studios aren't perfectly temperature controlled to deal with it. I don't know, maybe Leica is.
Well, like I do mine in my rinky-dink office. I mean, Aardman have probably got a proper controlled environment. Actually, they don't use plasticine anymore anyway. They use silicon mold. So they kind of in the original models that they make, they'll probably press their fingerprints in it to kind of give it that kind of handmade texture, and then they'll make molds from it and just cast it.
I see.
Yeah,
and they won't manipulate it, will they? Is it just replacing heads and parts and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, they still they can. It's got an armature in it, so they can kind of move the arms up and down and stuff. But it's made out of silicon. But it looks like plasticine, but it's not plasticine anymore. Cheaters.
I just assumed it was still plasticine.
Nah.
Anyway, today's topics we'll cut right to it because it's Superman and I'm excited. But this is our last 70s episode, actually.
It is. Well, apart from when we do the wrap up.
Yeah, we'll do some trackies. We'll give some awards out. Even though it's going to be quite difficult to give awards out for this one because all of them are pretty.
Which is the most rapiest film of the 70s?
Oh God, there's a rape joke in this.
Is there?
Yes. I was just like, come on. Not right at the beginning. That is a lie. When you were introduced to Lois Lane, and she's writing a piece up and they're correcting her spelling, and Perry White's like, there's one P in raping. Or something like that.
Yes.
And I was just like, Jesus Christ, rape culture. Like, the 70s are just like everything. Superman has got like rape in it. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, if you want to look at like Superman Returns, that could, like the fact that he kind of, because he kisses her in the second one, doesn't he? And it kind of makes her lose her memory.
Yeah, that's really weird.
So you assume that they obviously had sex at that point because in Superman Returns they have a child.
Yeah, sure.
Which she has no knowledge of having sex with Superman or Clark or whatever he was at the time.
I'm guessing in between.
So I'm guessing that's
in between adventures he gave her memory back.
A little bit rapey.
Yeah, I hate mind wipe stuff like that. That's one of my pet peeves. They do it in Doctor Who a lot. They do a lot of like just like mind wiping and stuff, and it's ridiculous. I think it's horrible, really.
It's lazy as well.
Yeah, it's so lazy. It's so ridiculously lazy. Like, either just don't write the plot so they don't find out, or make it not matter. Don't just do it like a magic MacGuffin that makes them not remember anymore.
Or just have them remember and add some drama and some.
Yeah, yeah. If you're gonna do something, make it matter. Don't just wipe it out.
Go back to the status quo, because then that's just boring.
It's just sitcom writing.
Yeah.
Not that actually, sitcom writing tends to be better, but Yeah, Superman 2 is weird. I watched Superman 2 again, actually.
Did you? I didn't. My plan was to watch all of them because I've never seen Superman 4 Quest for Peace.
4 is.
I watched a bunch of the behind the scenes features.
Oh, cool.
Superman,
Oh, cool.
So.
I didn't watch any. I never do. You always do. That's your job.
Well, I mean, I love watching behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But the problem is if you watch a making of from when the film's made straight away, it's kind of very matter of fact. But then when you watch a making of from a film that's like 20, 30 years old at the time of that making of made, it's a bit lovey-dovey.
Yeah,
they kind of
the
look
pretense.
back at it with a bit rose-tinted glasses, or
sure,
you know. So, like for the making of Superman, they're like, They kept saying every 5 seconds, "This was made without computers." You've got to remember, this was made without computers. And it's like, we get it, we get the point.
We get it.
You didn't use computers, okay? Because like the way they did it back then was the more layers and iterations you had to have on a physical. Because it was all using film, the quality deteriorated. That's why a lot of the times they'd film all their special effects in 70mm, so that by the time it gets scaled down to 35, it still looks pretty good. Which is like a lot like how I work. I'll film in 4K, but my film I'll output in 1080 because I can scale it down and move around with so it's no different really. But
I guess the only difference is that it actually is physically degrading as it is passed to department, the art teams, whatever. Like.
But I'm interested. I'd love to see a feature film of that scale using like old school techniques. And obviously they'd still use computers now to kind of marry it together. But I think it'd be quite cool to see what they could do. It's like we were talking about the other week. Like Puppet Yoda's great, and I really like the Puppet Yoda in the Last Jedi.
Oh yeah, of course it was a puppet in that as well. Yeah, and you can really tell like the difference between Yoda in Phantom Menace and the rest of the prequels. It has no there's nothing to it as a character. It feels much less of a character and less of a thing. There's something so good about physicality in film.
Well, Yoda was a puppet in the Phantom Menace, but they've changed it now, haven't they? So he's like
I didn't know they changed it.
So they
I thought he was still the puppet.
No, he's the CGI model. But the puppet they did, he looked nothing like Yoda, that puppet. He looked so bizarre. And it's only meant to be like 30 years before A New Hope, isn't it? No, it's not. I don't know. Is it like 30 or 40 years before A New Hope?
It can't be that long. Sure.
But
it can't be too long.
But like how old Yoda is, I don't think he'd have changed that much.
No, those whatever Yoda species is, absolutely they age quickly. Like they take like 900 years to get to one age, and then within like 30 years they just go downhill really quickly.
It's like a cat, really. They're fine for like 12 years, and then the last few years they're like, "Nah, I've given up."
Yeah, when it gives up, they just go downhill in a second. I was quite funny watching this film, actually, talking about it, because we spoke last week about which version to watch, because there are many versions of this film. And like the first way I was going to watch it is just watching on Amazon. I did watch on Amazon in the end. But if you type Superman into like Prime Video, it comes up with the most random bullshit when you try and search stuff.
I noticed that.
I don't understand why their search algorithm is so awful for Prime. But it comes up with, the first thing it comes up with is the problem with Superman's hair. Like it's some fan video.
Why is it not like even, why is it not Superman the movie or Man of Steel? Yeah. Why is it like some fan-made?
It's so fucking weird. Like that's the number one search on Prime for Superman. Is this thing, which makes no sense. And then you get like Arrow season 1 and Green Lantern. Then something called Valentine the Dark Adventure. Then Unlikely Hero with Ryan Reynolds in it, which I've never seen.
Yes, and he's kind of got like a blue and red, like red pants.
Yeah.
Yellow
and blonde hair.
Yeah.
It's bloody like, and not even on the first page do you get any of Superman, like not Man of Steel or Justice League or Batman vs Superman or any of the like Reeves ones. It's. Anyway, we should talk. I said we weren't going to ramble, and we have. But I hadn't seen Superman since I don't know when. Like I think it's been absolute years. It's not in like my recent memory. Last time I watched this film, it's a different film than I remember it being.
In what way?
It's a lot longer than I ever remember it being. And even I'm glad we didn't say let's watch the director's cut, because that's like 3 hours and something.
No, that's the TV one.
Is it?
I don't know.
I think it's the other way around.
Oh, okay.
I think the TV one's slightly shorter.
Well, I always thought that was longer because in America, like I think I've said it before, but they had it over 2 nights, so it was like a 2-night event in America.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That though, like, you can imagine it with this film because it is episodic as well.
Oh yeah. It's
What
like
kind
it's a 3-act structure really, and it's kind
Absolutely,
of a
yeah, it really is. It by absolute design, it's not an accident at all. Like, but like, I want to kind of, I love Superman. Like, personal history, I really love Superman. I wouldn't say he's my favorite superhero. That's up for debate. Who my favorite?
No, but he's the most important though, isn't he?
He is, and he's so damn iconic. And there's no character like Superman that exists in anything. Like Batman is, arguably as old, well, not arguably, he is by like a year. I think it was the difference between Action Comics 1 and Detective 12, whatever it is. But like, there's both of those characters. Yeah, they play a massive part in like world culture, which is just not. It definitely wasn't a thing before recent times. And the fact that like prior to the internet, you had a character that was known in every part of the world.
Oh yeah.
No matter, you can go to any part of Asia or any part of Africa or any part of South America or Europe, and people would know who Superman was from just like a logo.
Yeah.
And that's kind of special. And
I'd say since like Batman and Superman, there's only 2 other logos that I think you could probably show around the world and they know what it is, and that's probably Ghostbusters and Jurassic Park. Do you know what I mean? They've kind of got like those iconography. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and now you've made me forget what I mean. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, you're right. And that for that reason, that I'm really precious about Superman. And I think like I get annoyed when people don't treat Superman properly, especially what's been really annoying me about the recent the Warner Bros. Films and really the Zack Snyder films more than anything else is the fact that Superman should be your tentpole. He should be the most important thing in your DC universe.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And every time I watched one of the new films, it just felt like he didn't want to be doing Superman. He had to do Superman, and it felt like he didn't get Superman. And he really was just wanting to do Batman. That's all he really cared about, and he was just biding his time, treading water, to be able to do Batman.
Well, I think
I get why people want to do Batman.
When you were talking about Dan Harmon last week, when you were saying with TV, you should start the TV show at the point you want your characters to be at, kind of.
Yeah.
And I think with Superman, what they tried to do with the new ones is they kind of they wanted to build him up. So by the time the 3rd film comes out, he's the Superman you really, really,
It wasn't even by the 3rd film. It was by the time of the 5th film, I think, the plan was that you wouldn't... And that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
He should have at least been the Superman we love by the end of Man of Steel.
Yeah, absolutely.
He should have... I don't... obviously, you have to have character growth and progression and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I understand that. You can't just have him... Well,
the idea that he doesn't grow as Superman himself, that's the silly part of Superman. Yeah. That's what people don't... That's bad writers of Superman don't get. Is they see this iconic character who's basically so good and so perfect and so strong and powerful, and they struggle in knowing how to combat and write that character. Whereas that's the problem. You need clever people to be writing that. And the people that can do it nail it. Better than almost any other character, I say.
To not completely shit on the Snyder stuff, there's a few things I like about them, I have to say. And one, they're all they're not story or character things. I think they look pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
The music is amazing. The Hans Zimmer score is fantastic.
Yeah,
it's bombastic and stuff, but it's proper gym music. If you put it on in the gym, it gets you pumped.
Okay.
And I think the cast is pretty good, and I think they've got a good cast. But other than that, I think they're really I think the casting for Jonathan Kent's really good. I think Henry Cavill's pretty good, and I think the Amy Adams is a fantastic actor. But it's just a shame they're completely let down by people who don't really understand.
You're totally right.
Because they had everything going for it except for that.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
The biggest thing for me is the whole Jonathan Kent thing, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we can get into that. We can definitely get into Kent because I absolutely agree. With the way they did it in Man of Steel is so incorrect. It's ridiculous. But I thought it might be quite funny if I give you some background of Superman. But I won't. I won't be okay, Action Comics 1.
I mean, everyone knows it's created by Schuster and Siskel. Is it No,
Siegel. I think.
Siegel.
Yeah, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting. It's kind of, I think it's, they were paid $10 a page, and they were paid $130 to write this comic, basically because they needed to push through a comic into the pages of Action Comics 1. Almost accidentally, he was chosen for the front cover. It was just an exciting image. They were selling out tons. It was the biggest selling comic book ever. It sold like millions, I think. And they didn't even know it was Superman that was selling it because it was an anthology issue. There was always different characters, so they didn't really know it was the Superman that was actually the big selling point. It took them a while to kind of catch up to that was the thing. And Action Comics 2 was not going to be Superman until they realised that, oh my god, we've got something with this.
Well, I'm guessing with the Detective Comics as well, like that was like an anthology one, wasn't it? Like lots of different stories in one. And it wasn't until they realised people actually were gravitating towards these specific characters they decided, okay, they need their own.
They need their own book. Yeah. And that never used to be like Superman is basically the first character to get his own book. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And
because I don't think he was the first superhero though, was he? Because I think the Phantom may have even predated him. And
the Phantom predates him. I like this argument. I think he is the first superhero, but there are characters that predate him.
Yeah, he's the first. Like, I have superpowers. Actually, did the Phantom have powers? I can't remember.
The Phantom can talk to animals, but I don't know if he could in the 30s.
But does that make Dr. Dolittle a superhero?
Well, no, because it's presentation, isn't it?
Right, okay.
That's why Superman nails it. He presents himself as a hero. He's actually saving people. He has powers and stuff like that. The Phantom's more of a pulp hero, I would say.
Yeah.
And Batman's kind of a pulp hero as well. It's not until he merges with the superhero genre a little bit into it. And I mean, very arguably, Superman starts out as a pulp hero. And that's what I love about Superman as well, which is what people always fail to nail, is the fact that his early adventures, his early Action Comics adventures, he was beating up like landlords. He was, he was like slumlords who were like charging too much rent and knocking down buildings. They were his enemies.
He didn't fly, did he? Until like the radio dramas.
Until the radio drama, yeah. And he would beat up like wife abusers and stuff like that in the early comics and things, like people beating their wives and stuff. That was like what Superman went against. He was like a hero for the common man, and he's always been in that way. He's always been seen as like the kind of leftist hero compared to more of a right-wing Batman.
Yeah,
basically, in the way those two things go together. And I think when you lose that air of him, I think is when you fail to write Superman really well. And that's why I dislike the fact that I don't mind what Miller did in Batman Dark Knight Returns. It's fine painting him as this
the Boy Scout,
the Boy Scout of the American Army, who's a bit too blinded to patriotism. That's fine painting him like that, but that's that version of it for that alternate future. And so often that character has been pushed into the way we write Superman every day, and it's such bullshit because he's never like that. And it's just same with Batman for that matter, really.
I mean, I think like if you really want to like I never read Superman like I used to read Batman, but like for me the big books, like, and I'd say that for me, like, I really liked Superman A Man for All Seasons, and I think it's kind of told from like 4 different perspectives, like from Lois Lane's, Lex Luthor's, and other perspectives, and it's by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale.
Yeah, wonderful.
Then there's Birthright, which I really liked, which is kind of like an origin story. Good. Yeah. And my favourite though is All Star Superman, hands down. It's my favourite Superman story ever.
Yeah,
and it's basically the end. It's the last ever. It's like it's 12 issues, and it's like his last 12 great.
So it's basically Superman gets cancer and has a year to live.
Because he goes too close to the sun, is that right? And he kind of
gets he gets too much of an overdose of like some lethal radiation that was set up by Lex, actually. The end of it, it's what I love about All Star Superman is the fact that it's telling this really human story. That's the best thing to do with Superman, is like pull out this humanity in him, which is what they do in this film. But like they do it in this fantastical way, like mixing that kind of trippy sci-fi with that emotion of humanity, and then this grounded kind of crime stuff is all just jammed into that. And it's all about how he's seen from other people. Like the whole of All-Star Superman is all about, Lex Luthor's relationship to him, Lois Lane's relationship to him, his relationship to his parents, his relationship to other members of Krypton, and his relationship to like the scientist whose name's going out of my head, who's inspired by him. And there's little scenes in All-Star Superman like him stopping that girl committing suicide.
Oh, that's one of my favourite panels in
a comic.
comic.
I'm the same.
So
and the fact that Grant Morrison was able to just nail this core of Superman while bringing up, I love the kind of the Mort Weisinger stuff. That's the 1950s Superman when it was just all big sci-fi and colours and everything like that. The fact that Grant Morrison could go to like Mort's stuff and then bring that into like everything about Superman and make it this kind of colourful, like sci-fi, loud, crazy kind of elements of like fantasy. It works so well, and
that's
the whole
Grant Morrison's really
great.
good at, though. Like
It is.
like when he kind of legitimized the Batman of the Razin Zur or whatever, and it's like, and it's kind of like Batman's reboot kind of setting, and I thought that was pretty cool. Like I know a lot of people who don't like Grant Morrison as a writer, but I think I think he gets the heart of it, but he's still able to do all this really weird stuff, but still have it really grounded and respect the character for like.
What I love about his stuff is that it uses comic books, and he absolutely nails the heart of it. I mean, All Star Superman's about his dad dying, basically, and that's why he wrote it, and that's why it's full of all that emotion, and but like the fact that he then just uses the medium to be wacky and wild and trippy and great visuals and just like, and a bit crazy and a bit like high concept, that works in comics so much better than it works in other mediums. I don't think All Star would work very well as a film. The cartoon's okay. The cartoon doesn't get it though. It's not as good as the comic. And
it kind of ignores the whole point of it, I think.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
They kind of focus. It focuses more on the other Kryptonians coming, I think.
Yes,
which I think is only one issue of the book, really, and it's because there's a whole thing where he meets. Is it Samson? And he has like because he gives Lois Lane the powers of her, himself, of him, like they go and visit Samson, and they kind of like have like basically like a showing off match, don't they? Where they kind of like. Well, I think there's one with Jimmy Olsen where Jimmy Olsen turns into a monster or something.
Like one of the old Jimmy Olsen comics. Yeah. And like the big thing about that comic is about seeing the world how Superman sees it. So he gives Lois Lane like the ability to feel like what it is to be him for a day. And at the end of the comic, Lex gets that as well. Lex becomes all powerful, and it drives him to tears because he suddenly realizes how like beautiful and connected the world is and stuff. And he's like, I can't believe this is how you see the world every single day you live. No wonder you're like, the way you are. And like to nail that humanity of him is really good. To nail that kind of powerfulness of Superman and then mix it with this fragility of the way that he sees the world every day is gets to the core of why the superhero works when he works.
Did you ever read Red Sun?
Yeah, totally.
To you actually.
Probably, yeah.
But I thought that was a good book. I think has it been made into an animated film? It either has or it's coming.
It has. I'm sure it has. I haven't seen it. I don't watch many of the animated films. I used to watch a lot of them, but I kind of just dropped out at some point.
There was a point which I really quite enjoyed them, and then I was going to ask you, what was your earliest memories of Superman? What kind of springs to mind when you think of Superman?
Probably the Reeves film. I think
the first one.
Yeah, probably. Though I have to admit, it went until watching today. I had both the movies wrapped in my head a little bit together, because I forgot that number 2 opens with basically a recap of the first film.
Does it?
So like it's about 10 minutes or so. It's just like an absolute recap and shows some of the stuff that happened in the first film. So I think quite often I might have watched the second one and kind of just like thought I'd watched the first one still.
See, for me, like I've got cousins who are a little bit older than me, and they were really into comic books and stuff, and they were always running around in like like those old pajamas from like the 70s and the early 80s like with the red rings around the wrists, and they would always have those on and stuff like that. And like for some reason that image is burnt into my head, and like they'd have the toys, like the Super Friends toys, and there was one where I think if you put a kryptonite ring next to Superman, he had like a reverse magnet, but it was reversed inside of him. So if you put the ring
I had that toy. Yeah, he fell over. I had that toy. Yeah.
And I'm sure that you could even get a Superman car with that toy. And it's like, why does Superman
mobile? Yeah, but totally.
Like, you know, I'm trying to think. There weren't many Superman cartoons, if I remember. I think there was the
new
Max
Adventures.
Fleischer ones and stuff like that.
I have got this. Because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Superman in media, like before Superman, the Reeves film.
We can do.
So,
I mean, I think they're beautiful, but they're kind of like Mad Scientist of the Week kind of episodes, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
But the animation,
they're all in public. Yeah, so yeah, it was produced by Fleischer, who were famous for doing like Popeye and stuff like that at the time. Yeah. The cartoon ran from 1941 to 1943. I think what's really great about that is literally as soon as Superman existed, they pushed him into like other medium. You know, they absolutely capitalized this as soon as they could. And Paramount, the rights to Superman are crazy, which is part of the history of making this film. But Paramount had some rights at the moment, and basically they took it to the Fleischers and say, like, can you do this cartoon for us? The Fleischers didn't want to do it, so they put down a ridiculous bid. They basically told them, like, we would do it at 100K an episode, and the shorts were only 6 minutes, I think they are.
I'm guessing they were in the cinema, weren't they? So they were like showing.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
films and stuff.
Which that 100K is equivalent to nearly 2 million an episode today. Like that's how expensive they were. But yeah, they look beautiful. Like,
without that, you wouldn't have Batman the Animated Series, I don't think, because it borrows so much from that, like the aesthetics and the way they're drawn and stuff is so.
Yeah, it's like painted. They're beautiful.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a bit of rotoscope in there.
There is. I was going to say a lot of it was rotoscoped. A lot of it was painted as well. Like, and it's and it won them an Academy Award nomination in 1941 for best short subject and stuff. They're all public domain. I really do recommend watching them. They're brilliant.
I've got the Blu-ray set, and it's kind of got all the Reeves films and shitty returns, but it's kind of got them all on there. And yeah, there's a great one with like anything with giant robots in and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm in, and there's a great one with a giant robot. So.
And that giant robot's referenced in so much stuff since. It even kind of looks like the Laputa robots from Ghibli.
It does actually, doesn't it?
Which I wonder if there is a connection to it. But yeah, like Bud Collyer played Superman in that, and Bud Collyer would go on to play Superman a lot during this time period, like. Up until, like, I think Bud Collyer was still playing Superman in Super Friends. So he started in the 40s and was still doing it in, like, the 70s and stuff. Well,
there was, like, a weird live-action one, I think. And then when he flies, he becomes animated. So, like, you know, we were talking about live-action mixed with cartoons last week. And well, I was going back to the 30s or 40s, they were doing it then.
Yeah. The Fleischer cartoons were the one who gave Superman his most, like, flight, by the way.
Oh, was it that? I thought it was the radio show.
So when they started working the series, Superman was only just jumping over buildings, you know, and when they were trying to animate that, it just looked silly, basically. So they went back to Action Comics, National Comics at the time, whatever they were called, and just said, "Can we have him fly? Because it just looks a lot better." And they went, "Yeah, okay," and then that's it. So from then on, he flowed.
I'm just looking at stills of it. It's so it just look like I love that black S.
Yes.
Well, not the black S, but the black around
the black background. Yeah. And like, so then like that was so popular, and the second season actually weren't made by Fleischer, but everyone just refers to them as the Fleischers.
Oh, really? Okay.
The second one were called the Famous Studios. But everyone just calls them the Fleischer cartoons. But then then it got into the serials in like and serials, if you don't know, serials were really big stuff in the 40s. They used to just show them at the cinema, and each week it'd have a new episode of it. They tended to be quite short, like they tend to be between 2 and 3 reelers. Like 3 reelers is like 30 minutes, 2 reelers is like 20 minutes. And they tended to be like the first episode would be a 3 reeler, and everything else would be 2 reelers and stuff like that. The first ever serials were Captain Marvel, you know, Shazam as we call him now, and because the Captain Marvel serials were so popular, then every other superhero started getting onto this, which is like you had Batman in 1943, which I'm sure you've seen.
The Batman one's hilarious because there's a bit where you see Batman run. He jumps off like a ladder, and as he lands, he's obviously in his cape got a little pouch where he keeps his cigarettes, because you see all of his cigarettes just fall out of his cape. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, there's Batman in 1943 and Batman in 1949. He had two. There was like Captain America. There was the Phantom. There was and Superman didn't. They've been trying to get Superman one done since like 1941, which is when the Captain Marvel one was done. But 1948 is the Superman one came out, and that was 15-part serial. Kirk Allen played Superman, and Noel Neal played Lois Lane. And that revolves around this plot of him discovering kryptonite and fighting someone called the Spider Lady. But it has like everything from the comics at the time. It's really like it has the Daily Planet, it has Jimmy Olsen, it has Krypton, it has Marlon Park Kent, it has Park Kent dying, it has Jor-El, and this is the one where all the kind of action scenes were animated. So as soon as it would jump to an action scene, it went into this cartoon, and it is. I kind of think they're really fun. I have watched them. I do think they're really fun. And then they kind of it was kind of a weird they didn't. By the time they kind of got it out in 1948, serials weren't that popular anymore. So that really no one wanted to do it, and it kept on getting shot around different studios, and different people started buying up different elements of the rights, and this is why the rights got so complicated. So at that point, Columbia did it as well, and then they made a sequel to it in 1951. There's something called Atom Man versus the Superman. Notably, I think it's really funny that Atom Man gets the top billing in that. Which, this big 1950s nuclear paranoia stuff. Atom Man's actually Lex Luthor, and he blackmails Metropolis by threatening to destroy it with his atom bombs.
Okay.
And then Perry White sends Lois Lane to cover the story or something, and Clark Kent, and they stop Lex Luthor, who's really German in it. If you watch it, he's got this really German accent, and Lex Luthor's really kind of a Nazi villain in it. That was the last serial anyway. The second one is the first live action film was 1951. Is
that the Mole Man? No.
Yes, absolutely. What was it called again? Something and the Mole Men.
This is just Superman and the Mole Men.
Superman and the Mole Men, I think. Superman and the Mole Men. It was again, it was independently produced, but directed by a guy called Lee Sholem. And written by the radio guys, basically, who were writing under pseudonyms because they weren't allowed to kind of write on other stuff. But this is this first episode of George Reeves playing Superman, and the storyline of that is it's really, it's Clark Kent and Lois go to a little town and witness they're drilling the world's biggest oil drill or something, and the drill penetrates the earth core, and these little kind of glowing weird creatures come out of it. They're all bald, and they start terrifying the local townsfolk, and the local townsfolk kind of get up arms to beat them all up, but Superman kind of stops them from killing them all, and that's really all it is. That, and there isn't any there's no massive more action there. It's only 58 minutes long, but it's nothing's really recognizable in this story apart from Lois Lane, apart from the fact that it's echoing that kind of original Superman plots. Superman was never just beating up massive monsters. He was always stopping tragedy happening and stopping disasters and things, and they still get it in the 1951. That's what they were doing.
I was gonna say, I heard his costume wasn't actually blue and red, and that it was kind of more browns and stuff because it photographed better in black and white. In
black and white, yeah, totally. I think they had a number of them because obviously they made some for posters, I think, as well, but most of the time they shot in the black and white ones. But yeah, George Reeves then played Superman for a long time after that. They took the show onto the TV. So in 1952 he got a TV series. Noel Neal returned as Lois Lane in that. It's from the original serial. They got 6 seasons. I think seasons 1 and 2 are black and white, and the rest were color. And it's over 100 episodes. If you've seen the film Hollywoodland, it's all based on this, and it's quite a good film, directed by Ben Affleck.
I don't think he directed it. He's in it. But
he's in it. Okay. Yeah. I thought he had something to maybe produced it or something. I thought he had something to do the making of it.
But so he kind of played Superman and he's played Batman.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and he looked good as George Reeves. He looks good as Superman. He's got that old school Hollywood, barrel chest. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So. What really makes me laugh about the TV show is that it's again he's beating up crack cooks and gangsters and just being Clark Kent. but it was famously it was produced by Kellogg's. That's where they got the money from. So they used to have like George Reeves and Noel Neal's like eating like cornflakes in between the episodes to advertise them, but they'd never have them eating together because Kellogg's thought it was too suggestive. Like, so you couldn't have them having breakfast together on the screen at the same time because that was too naughty, which I just think's hilarious, really. Noel Neal and Kirk Allen. The TV show was huge, and George Reeve was like a household name, but because he died, the production basically was cancelled on it, and that's the only reason it ended.
Yeah. Did he commit suicide?
You know what? I think so, but I didn't look it up. But I think it was tragic anyway.
Yeah, because there's the curse, isn't there? I said
the curse of Superman. Yeah, sure, yeah.
I know. Obviously, we'll get into Christopher Reeves and his tragic accident, but
and Margaret Kidder as well. That's right. Into that, like. But actually, Noel Neal and Kirk Allen was Superman from before. They're actually in the 1978 film. They play Lois Lane's parents.
On the train.
It's not in the theatrical cut. It's only in the TV cut or the director's one. But they were filmed to be in it, so they did go back and try and pull out all these original actors to do stuff.
So I just looked it up. So the theatrical cut is 2 hours and 21 minutes. The director's cut is 2 hours and 29 minutes, and then the TV cut is like 3 hours 10.
Okay, that's the massive one. You were right. Yeah. It's so weird to me. Like, and this film is long enough as it is to make it 3 hours.
I think the TV cut literally it's like all the director's cut stuff, and it's probably just lengthening out the scenes like either end.
Yeah.
Because normally what you do when you're editing is you kind of go, okay, what's the last point I can start this scene without it being awkward? Because your idea is you don't want your film to be long. You want it to be short enough so you can get as many screenings in a day, don't you?
Sure.
But you're still going to tell the story you want to tell, so it's kind of like
you want scenes to breathe on their own and not feel like they're jammed in between other things as well. So if they start too quickly,
which is my biggest complaint with The Dark Knight Rises. I think if that film had a bit more space to breathe, I think that would have been a bit better for that film, because that film just feels like a big I like that film, but it feels like a big montage. But
sure,
I only bring that up because Batman and Superman, they kind of go hand in hand, and I think we'll get into it, but Batman Begins is very similar to this film.
Yep, very similar, very inspired. I agree.
But
a couple of things before, like the film as well. Like there was some cartoons as well in the 60s. So you had the New Adventures of Superman, which ran from 66 to 70. And they were just 6-minute animated things, but they're all packaged together in these kind of like superhero happy hour stuff. So you had the Batman Superman at house or something. The Superman the Aquaman Hour of Adventure, and like think about the Superman and Superboy stuff. There was tons of like attempts to make Superboy stuff. It never really
Superboy's weird because sometimes he's actually young Clark Kent, isn't he?
Yeah.
And then a lot nowadays he's a different character, isn't he?
Yeah, it depends. It's complicated, as you say, but a lot of the Superboy stuff was meant to be his childhood, and that's why it gets tied into the Legion of Superheroes. So, like, Superman was meant to spend a lot of his childhood in the 31st century with a team of superheroes, and they kind of train him to be Superman, basically. And then after he's finished with them, he goes back to our time.
Well, I always thought Legion of... So when he dies, he gets killed by Doomsday, and he comes back as the 4 different ones, and one's like a younger one with like a leather jacket.
Yeah.
That's the one that then becomes the Connor Kent. No.
That's the guy with the leather jacket, that is the clone of Superman and Lex Luthor.
But isn't that kind of what becomes Connor Kent, though?
Yeah, he eventually takes the name Connor Kent, yeah. But
then when we in the Infinite Crisis, getting really nerdy now, but the Infinite Crisis, when Superboy is the one who kind of causes it all.
Mm-hmm. Superboy Prime.
So is that meant to be Clark Kent technically?
That's the other Superboy. But yeah, basically that's the other Superboy. That's not Superboy Prime. That's the other Superboy. Sorry, that's the other Superboy that existed that wasn't young Clark Kent back in this time period before the clone version of him. But Superboy's just one of these characters that they keep trying to do, and he's never that popular. Right. And actually, Kal-El, I think, or Connor, Connor Kent. Connell's really the most successful
He's a good
version of
character.
Superboy. Yeah, he is.
But I'm sure in the 80s, I think in the 80s they did like a TV version of,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it may have been by the same production company that did these movies.
It was.
So,
yep.
And I'm sure someone famous played him.
I think someone famous did, and I can't remember. It wasn't a good film. The last cartoon I wanted to talk to as well is Super Friends, that started in 1973, and I think Super Friends is really important for the production of this film, because it kind of starts like cementing Superman everywhere. Like, I think we forget how popular Super Friends actually was, and funny enough, it wasn't. In 1973, it got cancelled, and then it got brought back in 1977 because it just started getting popular and like reruns and things like that. But I didn't realize that Super Friends ran until 1985. I didn't realize it ran that long.
Well, I think it kind of evolved, didn't it, over time?
It absolutely did evolve. Yeah, the last one was called like the Superpowers Team, the Galactic Guardians. Like, it had like Darkseid in it and stuff.
I think they tried to link it in with the toys then, because I think the toy line was called Superpowers, and then they were like linking it into that. And I think it kind of got, I wouldn't say it got darker, but you know, it was very wholesome.
It did,
when it first
though.
started.
Like, and the art was kind of cool. Like,
and I think they introduced like Darkseid into it, and they kind of had a bit more ongoing storylines as opposed to like
just the kind of serial stuff.
Yeah.
But it, like, when it was really popular, it was written by the absolute Silver Age comic book writers like Gardner Fox, Julius Schwartz, and Carmine Infantino. Like, it was all written by these huge names in DC Comics, which I didn't realise they did, to be honest. I really thought Super Friends was just like a cast off that no one ever thought about. Anyway, Superman. Like, yes. 'Cause we need to talk about the development of this damn film. This film is just like, is incredible. Like, and that's why I wanted to do a bit of history of how like complicated these little serials were and the people playing him. But okay, you get Superman 1978. It's directed by Richard Donner, who you'll know from Goonies and Scrooged and Omen, Lethal Weapon, and 16 Blocks, which I kind of love. Like, and
Die Hard 4, you mean?
Oh God, yeah, it used to be where it was, wasn't it? One of the many Die Hard scripts that didn't get made into a Die Hard film, because that's an absolute industry
stars Bruce Willis. Like, yeah. What's the other one? Tears of the Sun or something, which
Tears
still
of the
stars
Sun, yeah.
Bruce Willis and was a Die Hard script.
We should do a Die Hard season and just watch all the films that didn't become Die Hard.
Oh my God.
All those scripts that were written as Die Hard films. Anyway, what Richard Donner kind of brought to this is the fact that he decided to treat this as like sword and sandals epic. He wanted to treat Superman as like a romantic and biblical figure in the way that sword and sandals would do those figures and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that absolutely comes through in this film more than anything else. We can talk about the biblical stuff later on.
But I do want a moratorium now on Superman being a Christ-like figure. It's starting to really annoy me now.
I don't think it should be done. I think it's a bad reading of Superman. I think it's bad in this film as well. Superman is Moses, if he's anyone. He's not.
Yeah, because he's like he's cast away in the bassinet down the river.
Yeah, but he's cast away and not sent for a purpose.
Yeah,
that's a really important difference, and I don't like that they changed that in this film. And he he was also created by two Jewish guys. Like, there's an argument about how much he was actually influenced by Moses, and like Schuster and Siegel both say they weren't like, massively practicing Jewish people, but like he was a Jewish hero, and I think we should understand that and stop pretending he's Christ.
Yeah. Well, Jesus was a Jew, so
maybe. Anyway, the cast is huge. The cast is absolutely huge at this film. Like and what everyone always forgets is Marlon Brando is first cast in this film. He's first billed. He was paid the most. Like, the second build is Gene Hackman. It's not until Superman doesn't get billed until the third. Like,
we can't forget as well, Marlon Brando based his performance on a carrot or something. Like he was saying, that's his.
I thought Marlon Brando's performance in this was a joke, and watching it again this time, he's really good. Like, he's really good. He nails it, and like I think we this is a little bit like Orson Welles for me when I was talking to Brandon. Like, he's one of these characters that I think I forget how good he is because I know him as like the kind of caricature of him. I know Marlon Brando from like the that what is that bloody Island of Dr. Moreau and stuff, like
Hidden
when
shadows and
when he refused to wear pants and he wanted like a small person to be set with him all the time and stuff like that. Like that's like how I think of Marlon Brando, and then to watch him in this, I'm like he's nailing this. Like it's so important to have him in it, and it's so important to have like an actor that you just trust to handle this ridiculous kind of dialogue and stuff.
I mean, are we getting into it in order now, or are we kind of still just...
No, because development okay, is
just
film.
development.
So there's two. I think they're Mexicans. Ilya and Alexander.
The Salkinds.
The Salkinds, yeah. They've been wanting to try and make a Superman film since like the early 70s.
Yeah, they're Mexican, yeah.
Yeah, and they purchased the rights for Superman in like 1974. I don't know how they managed to purchase the rights for Superman.
It's like the guy who purchased the rights for Batman. Michael, I've forgotten his name now, but basically he was just a guy who had like a comic book course at university, and then somehow bought the rights to Batman, the theatrical rights, and he still owns them. And so every film that's made with Batman, he still is the producer.
It's ridiculous. Well, it's not ridiculous. Whatever. It's just funny. Like,
I guess these are the people who saw something in these properties, and
yeah,
because everyone else thought they're unfilmable. So like, how
yeah. The Salkins were heavy-handed producers. Is the easiest way to put it. They'd had some mild success with the Three Musketeers, and I think the sequel was the Four Musketeers.
But they managed as well. Like those films were made by the guy who took over. I think.
Yes, they were. Yes,
what's his name? The guy who did Hard Day's Night and stuff like that.
Yeah. We'll get to his relationship with them, but like he at the time when he took over from filming for Superman 2, he was still owed money by them. Richard Lester, yeah, he was owed money that they didn't pay him for shooting the Musketeers films. He was in court with them at the time, and he still agreed to kind of come on board, like, and do it. Like,
that's nuts.
It's nuts, yeah. So basically, yeah, they say that they spent weeks in negotiations with DC trying to secure the film rights. DC were really cared about the integrity of the character, which I find it funny that the Salkins thought that was a problem. But they eventually eventually basically the Salkins gave DC like not final cut but final choice on every dialogue in the film. So that meant that writing the script was a nightmare. The script was originally written by Mario Puzo,
yeah,
like the Godfather writer. He turned in 2 drafts. And they thought he was being too funny and too comedic. There was loads of like comedy characters in it, and they didn't like his.
If you take the guy who's written The Godfather and you say, "Okay, make a comic book film," that's probably what he thinks a comic book film is.
Yeah, and I don't think he was out of step with the 70s when he's writing this. This is early 70s. He's writing it. It's like 74. Like it's. I don't think he's out of step with the way these things were written on and shown at the time. Then David Newhart and Robert Benton were hired for rewrite works. Basically, they kind of stepped out as well. Leslie Newman took over and she wrote other stuff in it. She subscribed the script in 76. But the script apparently still had incredibly camp tone by the time Donna comes on board. But including like Telly Savalas had a cameo in it as Kojak and stuff.
Yes.
Which, why didn't they keep that?
Because what's the word Donna says? Is it like he just like vermisim? I can't pronounce it.
Oh, vermisimilitude.
That's what he was saying. The whole script need, like the film need.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's how that was his like mantra for the whole film. It had to be believable, otherwise you wouldn't believe a man could fly.
So he brought in a guy called Tom Mankiewicz to do a rewrite, and Mankiewicz basically said not a word of the original script was used. He said it was well written, but it was ridiculous, and it was 550 pages.
Did you hear that he didn't want to do it as well at first, and apparently when he went round to Donna's house for like an interview, just to chat about it.
Yeah,
Donna wore a Superman costume, like greeted him in a superhero costume. He was like, "Well, I've got to do it now." And like, I think this was like meant to be like, this was 6 months before production was going to start, because they had Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman locked for start date, so they had to kind of catch up with that. And I think there was another I don't know if there was another director or another production designer on board.
Oh,
And
I
they
can
did
tell you the director story.
and they like and they like had done like they'd spent $6 million already.
Yes.
And he's just said all of the work they'd produced so far, like previous stuff, was just like garbage, useless. So they kind of
just unusable. Yeah, Mankiewicz says that basically the script they gave him was 550 pages for both films because they're meant to do 1 and 2 together. But he says like that was a shooting script. He said for both films 110 pages would be more than enough you need for both films. He said this thing was just the most unshootable thing that's ever been written. He's basically, his big thing was having Kryptonians have all like letters everywhere on their costumes. That was the big thing he put in. But he got refused to be paid and credited for his rewrites because of like some guild rules and stuff like that. And Donna gave him another credit in the film to get him some money or something.
Well, those letters have that's now kind of in the Superman lore, isn't it? The House of El.
Yeah, it is absolutely.
Which I don't think's ever mentioned in these. That the S is like
no, it's not mentioned in the script. It's just in like production design, really. And L's not really. It's not really shown that L is like a house as well. Yeah. Really, I don't think it's that clear. But yeah, basically they went on then. So the Salkinds then went on to kind of trying to get directors, and the first guy they approached was Steven Spielberg, and Spielberg said he was very interested in doing it. He would be happy to do it. But like I think it was Alexander Salkind who basically said that I'm going to see what his stupid fish movie does first before we hire him. And yeah, his stupid fish movie was incredibly popular. By that point, they couldn't afford Superman. Spielberg, sorry, and he went on to do Close Encounters. So they went to William Friedkin. Then they went to Sam Peckinpah, both directors we covered on our miniseries. Friedkin just turned it down outright. He had no interest in doing it. Sam Peckinpah turned up to the meeting with a gun, and the Salkinds decided not to hire him. There's a bunch of people they approached. Guy Hamilton, John Guillermin, Ronald Neame, and George Lucas. And they actually going to offer George Lucas it until they found out he was too committed on this Star Wars thing. So let him do that instead. So they decided to go with Guy Hamilton because they really liked it. Because Guy Hamilton's a director of like Goldfinger, Live and Let Die, Battle of Britain, like a Bond director. So he's the one who gets greenlit to be the director of Superman. So they're going forward with Guy Hamilton. At that point in time, they've been struggling with casting as well, mainly for Superman. And this list of people, this is the best list of ever. Like,
is it Nick Nolte on there?
Yes. Muhammad Ali, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, James Caan, Clint Eastwood, Steve McQueen were all offered it. Dustin Hoffman was
live then?
Apparently. Dustin Hoffman was approached, but then later offered Luthor, and he turned that down. Robert Redford was offered Superman, and he said he was too famous and too old or something, and he just wasn't right for it. Burt Reynolds was offered Superman, and Burt Reynolds turned it down. Sly Stallone, Arnie, and Neil Diamond were lobbying for the role.
Neil Diamond?
Yeah, but they were all ignored.
I want to see that film.
They were actively lobbying in Hollywood and getting their like producers to kind of like send money to the Salkinds to get them as a Superman.
Like I've seen, like apparently they even screen tested like Richard Donner's dentist or the casting director's dentist.
Yes.
And there's even
They
footage of
did.
him. And like this is like we'll probably we may as well get into Christopher Reeves now, but like all of the tests that I saw, everyone was like overacting it, like they were being larger than life, they were posing and stuff. And the thing that Christopher Reeves did was that he kind of like let the suit kind of talk for him, and he like underperformed it.
What's really important about Christopher Reeves is that they refused they told him he had to wear a muscle suit. They said he was too small, and he refused it basically. Yeah. And he kept on saying, he would say, "I will work out and I'll be big enough to look great in it." And they basically didn't believe him. They paid Christopher Reeves nothing for this film. Like absolutely nothing. That it was like I think he was paid $250K, which it's a lot of money, but it's nothing compared to the budget in this film, which we haven't said was the most expensive film of all time.
Well, Donner got off. I think he got paid $1 million, I think, to make the film, and he agreed. But then they went, "It's 2 films." But I think he was like, sure. "Well, that's $500,000 per film, and I only make $100,000 per film at the moment, so I call that a win."
I call that a win. So basically, they offered it for James Caan, Nick Nolte, James Brolin, Christopher Walken, John Voight, Rex Harrison were all offered it, and they all turned it down. Patrick Wayne, who's John Wayne's son, he was cast as Superman. He dropped out after John Wayne got ill. So basically at that point, they went to Paul Newman, and they offered Paul Newman any role. They said, you can be Superman, you can be Jor-El, you can be Lex Luthor. Just do anything, and we'll pay you $4 million for doing that role. And he turned it down. Then eventually,
because I think if you're like that, you sound desperate, and then
yes, they were. That
probably makes it not seem appealing, because they're like, well,
it's like, especially because they were just the Salkins,
just so you could put the name on a film, really.
Yeah, they didn't feel like they hadn't. The producers like hadn't got a good track record with stuff, like, and they're known for being a bit kind of, Donna called them crooks, at the time. I don't know how fair that was, but I think they had a bit of a reputation around Hollywood of not being the best people to work with. That might be unfair. I don't know.
They seem a bit like the people who own Canon films, but just had a bit more money about them. Do you know what I mean?
So eventually they approached Brando, and he eventually would do it for $3.7 million. He got paid for this role.
For his 15 minutes of screen time or whatever it is.
Yeah, top billing with 15 minutes. That is just ridiculous. Because they cast Marlon Brando, Gene Hackman then said he'll do Luthor because he wanted to work with Brando. Well, not that they share any screen time together.
No.
But I doubt they would have even been on set together. I don't know. But Gene Hackman got paid $2 million for it as well. Then that's when you're saying they were looking for this is when they started shooting. So they hadn't even cast Reeves at this point when they started shooting. So they decided to shoot in Rome, in Italy, and they were building sets there, and they were shooting flying tests. However, after building all these sets and shooting all this stuff, Marlon Brando told them that he can't go to Rome because there's still a warrant out for his arrest there because of all the sexual obscenity in Last Tango in Paris, where they shot in Rome. So he had an active warrant out for his arrest, and he couldn't go to Rome. But
I also heard that the currency in Italy, what is it?
It was the lira then.
Kind of rocketed, and I think the pound was cheaper. So pound, they kind of got more bang for their buck in the UK.
Yeah, so they moved to the UK. However, because they moved to the UK, Guy Hamilton was currently in tax exile from the UK. And he wasn't allowed to spend any more than 60 days in the country without, paying tax. So he dropped out. I can't believe he dropped out for making Superman rather than just pay a bit of tax. That was just like, rich people are weird. At this point they'd spent $6 million. They had Hackman and Brando. They had no sets because it was all in Rome. They were trying to shoot in England, and they didn't have a Superman yet. So at that point they approached Mark Robson, who directed Earthquake, the disaster film. He was then hired, but he wasn't really hired because then Richard Donner, they watched The Omen and then went to Donner, and as you said before, they offered him $1 million, and he was like, fuck it. He was going to do Omen 2, and he was like, okay, I'll do this for $1 million then. He took at it and went, we need to start from scratch. At that point, they were going around looking at dentists, any actor, and they had I think over 200 people were in the open casting. But
I think he had the thought, it has to be an unknown because it has to be something you can believe.
Yes, exactly.
He can't be anyone else other than Superman.
Christopher Walken would have been the worst casting in the world.
It's like Nick Cage was cast, wasn't he? And as much as I'd love to see that film, I think it'd probably be a terrible film. I'd still love to see it. But he's still an odd choice. Henry Cavill's a better choice because at least he's not.
Henry Cavill.
At the time, he wasn't
No, he was just did TV, really, hadn't he? Yeah. So I think Henry Cavill's, as I said before, he's good casting, and he looks the role. God, then they went to production and stuff. It started spiraling because they were shooting Superman 1 and 2 at the same time. The filming was 19 months, and Donna the whole time was clashing with the Salkins and Spengler, who was the other producer as well. because the shooting schedule was ridiculous, because the production budget was just escalating. Donner was meticulous in what he wanted out of this. Like he as you said, he wanted verisimilitude. He wanted it to feel real. It had to look real. These people had to like work. He said this, no one will believe this unless this is right. At that point, basically, they were told they were so over schedule and budget, but that Donner was angry that they weren't even giving him a budget or schedule.
Yeah.
So they were like, you need to tell me what the budget is and the schedule is, and I'll keep to it, but you won't, so I'm just going to keep shooting. He goes, if you tell me that we've got 2 days left, I'll make it do 2 days. If you tell me, like, but whatever, like, just like, I'm going to make this film, basically. At that point, Richard Lester was brought on to work in the film.
Well, he was like an intermediary.
Yeah, he was a go-between, basically, between the producers and Donner. And Donner basically says, like this guy was owed money by these people. Why was this guy on the film? Like, why was he trusting them? Like...
You know, Scrooge, directed by Richard Donner. I wonder if the character that kind of is brought in to kind of he kind of takes over Bill Murray's job.
Yeah, sure.
And he's played by John, the guy who plays Lionel Luthor in Smallville.
Yes, yeah.
And I kind of wonder if he's kind of meant to be a bit
that, though. Yeah.
Guy.
So the big argument was that, and
John Glover, isn't it? I think. Sorry,
John Glover. That's it. Thanks.
He's in Gremlins 2 as well.
He's in loads of stuff. Yeah,
I have to say that because James Rayner will tell me off if I don't mention
if Gremlins 2 isn't mentioned.
Oh, he loves Gremlins
2. So basically, Donner took the decision at this point to stop shooting Superman 2. And that was the big argument with the Salkins. And he said, look, like, no one is going to care and no one is going to see Superman 2 if no one cares about Superman 1. So we are going to just do Superman 1. And, like, the big thing was that Superman 1 ended with a cliffhanger. It didn't have a solid ending to it.
Right.
And the whole point was basically, like, it was just going on to Superman 2. So the original ending of Superman 1 was basically, it's a bit difficult. It has the missiles, but there was only one missile, and it was a nuke. It was nothing to do with Lois Lane getting injured because obviously she's in the second film. So it was no time travel, and basically he shoves the nuke into the atmosphere, and that blows up in the atmosphere, and that releases Zod and the other guys from the Phantom Zone. So that was the ending of Superman 1, and but they reused that nuke stuff for the opening of Superman 2 with Paris, where they're in Paris and they're trying to blow up the Eiffel Tower with a nuke or something. And they instead moved it there, and they moved the kind of the destruction that was going to go off from Zod to the end of Superman 1, and had Lois dying at the end of Superman 1 and him turning back the time, which was going to be the end of Superman 2. So they basically reshifted all those kind of points. And it worked, basically. Like, his gamble worked. Like, and I think watching this film, it's all Donner on screen. Like, the film works because of Richard Donner's direction and his kind of hard attitude with it, I think. What I think is really great about it is that it's 3 distinct parts, like Krypton, Smallville, and Metropolis, like, and they all feel different, and they're all about Superman in different ways. Like, Krypton's all about this kind of alien godhood of him, basically. Smallville's all about this kind of human element to him, and this kind of and learning to be, like, humble. And then Metropolis is all about romance, and the entire bit about Metropolis is about romance. This is a romance film. Like, and it's sold on the fact that you need to believe these two are in love, and that's it. Like, more than anything else. And I will say, like, then you got stuff like the production design. John Barry, from Star Wars and Clockwork Orange, he nails the stuff on Krypton and stuff. I think his stuff here is better than Star Wars, actually, in a lot of ways. Probably because he had a lot more money. Actually,
I think Star Wars looks better. I think, like, don't get me wrong. I think the look of the Fortress of Solitude, like, the sets are fantastic, and, like, when the younger Clark Kent throws the crystal into, like, I think that looks amazing, because that's a set and it looks massive. Yeah, but I still think just the simplicity of, like, the Star Wars kind of kit bashed looking models and stuff kind of look a bit
Yeah.
better. But
Yeah.
like the cinematographer on this was Jeffrey Unsworth, who I think did 2001 and stuff like that, and he
Sure.
gives it a proper kind of gravitas to the film, and like kind of gives it that kind of like almost soft, timeless feel to it. Kind of.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
I do think like the flying sequences, especially of like with like the advent of like HD and 4K and stuff, it hasn't aged as well.
Sure.
As
Sure.
say like
There's a little big black lines around them.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But like, you know, this like we haven't mentioned him really, but Christopher Reeve's performance and the way he poses himself as he flies, he sells it because he looks fantastic. And
it's
like
all about his physicality.
if you watch his like audition, you can see from the moment he jumps on the he's basically his audition scene was the rooftop scene.
Okay.
Where Lois Lane interviews him, and you can just tell from like straight away, like compared to the other people who did the same scene, he was the right person. Like you could imagine the moment he first says his first word, like I could imagine in that room they just turn to each other like that. This is him. This guy's him. Because
like when Christopher Reeve says that I don't lie to her in that scene, like you believe that he doesn't. Like he embodies everything in that.
You know, he even looks at her pants.
He does look at her pants.
He's really stupid though, because he gives away his biggest weakness. I can't see through lead. Oh, okay, I'll just put that in the article.
I'll put that in the article. Yeah,
I thought
come
up later on.
We'll have to get into the plot. I've spent too much time rambling.
There was loads of people who auditioned for Lois Lane, and the audition scene for her, I think they'd obviously already cast Chris Reeves at that point because he's in all the auditions with the different Lois Lanes. And again, Margot Kidder is hands down the best person that they auditioned. And the audition scene was from Superman 2. It's when I assume it was from Superman 2. Well, it's in Superman 2 anyway. It could have been in Superman 1 originally. I don't know.
Sure.
But it's the scene in after she jumps off into the dam or whatever she does, and then Superman saves her, and she then figures out that it's.
Oh, sure, yeah.
When
she jumps into Niagara Falls. Yeah, and it's when he trips over the head of the polar bear on the hotel room and puts his hand in the fire. And she's like, yeah, like, yeah, and he gets really angry with himself. Like, she is. I love Margaret Kidder in this. It's like her, like, I don't know what the wording is, but like brassiness of like that kind of New York journalism of a character. Like, you absolutely believe that he would fall in love with her in a second.
But you see like how like when she's around Superman, she's more like Clark when she's around Superman. Yeah, she's like all bumbly and stuff. But when she's with Clark, that's when she's all go-getter kind of.
Yeah, and when she's with Superman, she kind of melts.
It's basically like their roles reverse, kind of.
Yeah. There's a bit in the Perry White's office early on when she grabs a soda from him, bangs it on the table, and hands it back to him and stuff like that. Like, and it's she's so just in charge.
And it's weird because they're not actors who I think are both amazing, but they're both perfectly cast for these parts.
Yeah, whatever magic happened with these two in this film, it almost like these two people are the reason why we get Lois and Clark, on TV.
Chris Reeves was 24 when he did this film, like 24, but he has the air of like.
He does, yeah. He does.
So he's actually playing older than himself. Like, so Superman's
he must be
30, isn't he? So I do hate that in this film that he basically cocoons himself for 12 years in the fucking Fortress of Solitude and then just flies out. It's like,
it's weird. It's weird.
I don't like it, but
what I respect about this film is that fact that when you get to Metropolis, he's Superman, and it isn't a whole film when he's slowly becoming Superman. Like, it's kind of nice that when you get to Metropolis, you're just watching Superman at that point. Like, you've got all the setup and it's gone. I don't know. Like, there's a difference between this and Man of Steel, I guess. Like,
Man of Steel does the whole globe-trotting thing, which they do
exactly,
which I quite like as well, because you're trying to find yourself, so that's what some people.
But again, it's the Christ-like thing as well, though, because he disappears for like 12 years and comes back as fully formed, and that's very Jesus. Jesus
Batman
goes
does
to the
it in
desert
Batman
for
Begins,
20
doesn't
years.
he? He travels the globe.
Yeah.
And
But let's go through because this film opens, if you haven't seen it in a long time, with an old 30s cinema.
yeah, like with a narration, with a comic book opening.
Yeah, with narration of Action Comics 1.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest opening that I didn't know. I didn't remember this being in it. And each page of this comic book is like the first few panels of Action Comics 1. So you have like the kind of the kid reading the Krypton blowing up and stuff like that. Like he's reading a serial. And like it's kind of a news footage like serial. It's like it's echoing the original serials that people would have still probably remembered. Before it pulls back and then the aspect ratio opens up and the credits fly through. And actually, someone we should have mentioned already, John Williams' score hits.
Oh, I mean, yeah. If there's two things that are amazing in this film, it's Christopher Reeves and it's the theme, it's the song, it's the music.
That score, yeah. I like this is it's funny as well. You're talking about Star Wars as well with the production design because John Williams again. Like it's the same crew members.
If you've got the money, you pull from the best, don't you? That's
yeah. But there were almost a lot of this was John Williams would have been after because it would have been later, wasn't it? But all the production took place before Star Wars came out.
Well, yeah. I mean, the film was meant to come out, I think, middle of 1978, but it was like delayed by 6 months.
Yeah, which was basically the entire post-production time they had.
So it was probably shooting in 1976, so probably before Superman. I mean, Star Wars. Sorry.
Star Wars,
they're kind of around the same time. But the one thing I love about the theme is it basically says Superman in the theme.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Superman.
It's just, and that's kind of, there'll never be someone else cannot write a Superman theme forever now.
No, but I don't like it being used now. Like, it feels too precious when they use it now.
I get you. Yeah, sure.
But as I said, the Hans Zimmer music for the recent films have been fantastic, but they're so different. John Williams writes themes, whereas Hans Zimmer writes
themes bombastic.
It's like mood music and it's intense. Whereas old Hollywood was more about themes and emotion and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a couple of points in this film when the theme hits, and you're just like, oh yeah, this is.
Oh yeah, it's hair on your arm raising. It's it gets you pumped. But
it's funny that in Superman 2 it doesn't quite work as well.
I just don't think that film works. It's really weird. Do you remember Wizard magazine years ago?
Yeah, sure.
So back in the early 2000s when there weren't many superhero films, they would always put Superman 2 as the greatest superhero film ever made, and I always found that really weird because for me it's just I never liked that film. Growing up as a kid, I never really watched Superman 1 a lot, but Superman 3 was always on bank holidays.
Yeah, sure.
So I watched that one a lot. And Superman 2 is one I always remembered because it's the scene where he gives up his powers, then goes to a canteen, gets beaten up, and he's like, "Oh, I want my powers."
My powers
just has them again. You're like, "All right, okay." So
there's no beat. The beats are lost in that Superman 2. You're right. Everyone remembers it because Neil before Zod is wonderful, and all the Zod stuff is wonderful.
Yeah,
but
Terrence Stamp's amazing in that film.
Yeah. There's so much. The romance doesn't even work in Superman 2 as well as it works here, and I think that's the problem. This is all romance.
So yeah, the intro sequence is 6 minutes long of just whoosh.
I mean, this music's insanely good, and we cut straight to the trial of Zod here, which is a sequel setup at the beginning of the film, which is, I think, is just mad.
Well, this is what I was going to say. Should have Zod been at the end of this film? Really? Should that? Have
Yeah, he should have. If they open it with him, they should be at the end of it. Really.
I mean, Man of Steel is basically beat for beat this, really, isn't it? But every time they show Krypton in any media, it's not a place I'd ever want to live. It's either this place looks really cold and really sterile.
I think that's so wonderfully done though on purpose because it's not, well, one, it's because I think both Donna and Puzo, if Puzo had any influence on this, was basically writing this as heaven. He and Jor-El's God, and he's in this heavenly white weird world. But I like that it's cold and alien. I like that it's has no emotion or warmth to it. I like that Superman has to come from this world that is so unhuman and so just like not a place you want to live. Like, and that I think that works as like as saying this is the fabric of Superman, the fabric that he is from this place that is not nice. It's not wonderful. You know, he's actually from like a really horrible place, really.
With their tinfoil reflective,
their fucking outfits.
Clothing.
Were they just shining massive lights at them?
Basically, it's like a reflective tool they use in like cinemas and
the little reflective screens.
If you touch it, it kind of ruins the reflectiveness of it, so it wouldn't work. So everyone had to like touch their costumes with very carefully, or with gloves and stuff. So it'd have been a right nightmare.
It would.
But I love the effect of like, you know, the kind of those three circles that are kind of like
the weird prison
around.
Thing. Yeah,
and then when
I always remember that.
And then when they trap them in the Phantom Zone.
Yeah. Very visually trapping.
Stark difference to the dildos that are in Man of Steel. Man of Steel's weird again. I'm going to keep bringing it up because they're kind of... But, like, again, that's a horrible looking Krypton. For a different reason, though. But this is like... reason. It looks like termites and... And there's, like,
it's
dragons
muddy and weird,
and
and dragonflies.
What's going on here?
Yeah.
And like
Krypton, I like Krypton being like a sciencey world. I like that about Krypton.
The video screens aren't videos; they're like, you know, those things that you push your face through, and they're pins. Those are like their video screens. They're like moving pins, and you're like, all right, what's this about?
Right, yeah, good technology here. It's yeah, you get Brando here, and Brando nails it. There's a reason
he's great.
Top build, like, and he does give it weight that lets you kind of carry it, like, They send basically, you know, everyone knows the story. Krypton's blowing up. No one believes Brando, Jor-El, and they sneak off. You know, Kal-El on a little rocket ship.
It's very male, like it's all about fathers, isn't it? So it's like he'll never be alone because I'll always be with him. It's like what about his mom?
His mom?
I know she pops up in the second one, doesn't she? I think.
Yeah, I think because they couldn't afford Brando to do it. I think I always find it really weird that it's Jor-El and like Lana. It's like why isn't she Lana L? Why doesn't she get a surname?
Yeah.
Why is she just Lana? It's a really odd world that Krypton is. Whatever. All this kind of stuff, the crystal technology and everything like that is stuck with Superman since this. Like it's glued itself to the Superman mythos. Like it has. Even like the new Supergirl TV show and stuff like that, it's the same thing. It's it's a weird, heavily uncaring place, so it will contrast for the rest of the film, really.
Because Supergirl's not from Krypton, isn't she? She's from like
she is.
I thought she was from Kendor, which or Kaldor. No.
Oh, I guess it could. There's so many different origins, but whatever. She's still like his cousin. She just takes longer to get to Earth. Is the way that it normally is. Like,
do they set that up in her film? I can't remember the original one.
I don't remember that film at all.
Because I think Reeves was meant to be in that, but
I think so. And
Jimmy Olsen's in it. I know that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I don't like this. I don't like the fact that he sends Superman with a purpose there. I think that ruins Superman a little bit.
They're great people and they intend to be good or something.
Yeah, and like you'll have great powers there, so you'll have to lead them, kind of thing, and show them the way. It's just it's too much Jesus. Like, and I don't like him purposely being sent to Earth. I like him accidentally landing on Earth. I don't like. It should just be like he should just be a refugee, like rather than like someone who's been sent. I like the idea
they send him to Earth just because they know that
he can live there.
He can live there, and they look like him. But knowing that he'll have powers and all that stuff, I think that's a bit too much. I think
it ruins it for me somewhat. But like, and then I think this is really weird in the capsule where like the baby Superman's getting taught things for some reason, and they're telling him about like Einstein's theory of relativity. And I'm like, why?
70s though, that's what they were teaching young Milo in.
But like. Surely Kryptons would know about relativity, and it would be one of their scientists that discovered it a long time before Einstein. Because look at their technology; it wouldn't have been like they'd gone, oh yeah, this relativity is kind of cool in this time period. It always bugs me anyway. It's like Star Trek Discovery put Elon Musk in it as one of the best scientists ever, and it's like, fuck off. Elon Musk doesn't even invent anything. The guy's just a businessman. Anyway, it's another rant. Like, anyway, yeah, he crashes into Earth.
Crashes into Glen Ford.
And it's cool because the Kents are amazing. And this bit's all about like just humanity. Like, and he's struggling that he's an outsider. He's struggling that he can't, like, you know, he can't just let himself go, and he's trying to enjoy himself, but he's getting bullied by Brad.
Well, I mean, in this version, Glenn Ford only has like 2 scenes as Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
But like, so it's the when like the 2-year-old
When they find him,
Clark, they find him, and Clark saves them from their truck about to crush them or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he has the other scene where he just basically, with great power comes great responsibility kind of conversation.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not a very overly emotional, sentimental person, but like for some reason, this scene really, really got to me, and I don't know if that's, you know, like, that's sounding too bleak, but you know, we've all got parents and they're all of a certain age, and you know that,
sure,
you know, eventually, you know, and like as much as I argue with my dad and disagree with him, like, I look up to him like,
sure.
So like, I am my father's son. I am very much like my dad, and I love him to bits. And it just, like, for some reason that just triggered in my head, and I got quite emotional watching this film, which I never thought I would, to be honest. Like, and then it made me really angry about the Man of Steel one, because like they kill him in a tornado because he doesn't want Clark to give up his like secret identity or whatever, or his.
That's such a fundamental misreading.
And the whole point is he has a heart attack because that's the one thing that
he can't cure.
Yeah. Like, you know,
he just can't fix it. Yeah.
And
if like the idea of teaching Clark Kent to hide himself is more important than just there was, you know, another father figure in his life that he loved and he couldn't help him. That's such a bad reading of Superman.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah, and it's, as you said before, Kevin Costner's good casting, but Pa Kent in those films is nothing compared to this.
Yeah, and he only has 2 scenes.
It's the same amount of time to do anything. Like,
yeah.
I love the running against the train.
I was going to say I hate the running. It looks so weird.
It's so silly, isn't it? Like,
it's like, you know, Phoebe in Friends when she goes running with Rachel and she does that stupid run. It reminds me.
I love how he's like not touching the ground.
I think he's actually on a rig running.
He must be.
And it's like obviously sped up or whatever. But then you have the silly little Lois Lane cameo, don't you? And she's like, she sees Clark out the window, doesn't she?
Yeah. And it's fun, but it's silly.
And also, Lana Lang's played by Diane Sherry, who I think then becomes... Oh, no, it's not this one. It's Lana Lang in Superman 3.
Okay.
Then becomes Mark Kent in Smallville.
In Smallville? Oh, that's cool. It's, as I was trying to say, with all the pre-production stuff, the stuff that's gone from the 30s and 70s, they keep using the same actors. Like, the same voiceover people keep coming in to do stuff and things. Like, it's like, once you get into Superman, you're in a family. It's kind of like Star Trek or something. Like,
you know, Adam West always popped up in various different Batman things, didn't he? And,
yeah.
You know, doing the voiceover for cartoons and stuff. Like, I think in that time, it's ingrained into everyone's psyche, and it's all part of their childhood. They kind of bring these people back, don't they?
Where are we? Running so
train.
His dad dies. And that's when he kind of realizes he has to leave, which I think is the best scene in the film. He's in the field.
It looks great. It looks so good.
And like his mom, like Mark Kent, slowly walking over, and like the kind of camera sweeping around them through all the kind of grass and hay and stuff like that, and the sunset's there. And my favorite thing about it is that Superman, like, he hugs her to say, like, you know, I've got to leave, and his mom knows that he has to and whatever. But I like that he hugs her, goes to leave, and that hugs her again. Like, it's kind of like it's just a little tiny touch which just feels so good to me.
You know, Christopher Reeves redubbed all of this kid's dialogue.
It's dialogue, yeah. It's weird. Do you think? The only note I had here is that I think the kid was a little old.
Yeah,
for some
probably.
reason.
Yeah. Like, I bet you he wasn't that. Let's have a look. I just want to have a look at the age difference.
Okay,
Christopher
good.
Reeves
Yeah.
was born in 1952. Where's the young? Jeff East was young. 1957. So like, there's
It's like
5 years between them. I don't think it was that necessary.
That's funny.
Like if you look at like Batman Begins, which we said very much follows this kind of template. I think Christian Bale plays all the various versions of, apart from like the 8-year-old.
Apart from the child one, yeah.
He plays all the versions of, because like it's 55 minutes or whatever until Christopher Reeves enters the film, which is nuts.
It's nuts, absolutely nuts.
Like with Batman Begins, Christian Bale's the first person you see.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's 55
It's Jor-El. Actually, I think Zod's the first person you see, but whatever. But like, it's so he leaves, he builds the Fortress of Solitude. Again, Brando pops up and kind of nails another kind of monologue. And then boom, Superman flies off and he's Superman. That's the origin of Superman. You've got it. Like, the only thing I'd say is you don't really need these 50 minutes. Everyone knows the origin of Superman, and I don't think they need to spend 50 minutes on it.
1978 though.
Yeah, even in 78, people knew Krypton ship crash landed, Park Kent. Like, people knew all that.
Is it All Star Superman that has the first panel, which is all of this in one page?
First page is like 3 panels, yeah.
And
which I think it says like doomed planet, last hope, and like kindly couple or something. I think is the wording for it. Like, which everyone knows it. But like, while saying the film can just open with Metropolis, there was as you say, like, there's such good scenes on Krypton. There's such good scenes with Marlon Brando. Like, it would be a shame not to have them in the film. It's just surprising they spend 50 whole minutes doing it. Which is very much the kind of sword and sandals epic that Donner was going for. You know? Like, and whatever.
You're constantly building to this moment, aren't you?
Yeah.
And I still think that moment he flies out the Fortress of Solitude is the best flying shot in the whole film, I think.
Oh, cool,
It's the way he arches his body around and he kind of does that curve.
And it's funny because this would be the whole film of him flying at the end now. If someone's to write it now, like, he wouldn't get, like, in the middle of the film he just becomes Superman. Like, it would take the entire film for him to become Superman, or even put the costume on properly.
Well, I think Man of Steel, it takes a good hour until he's like in the costume, but at least he's in the whole film. He's during the beginning bits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But he's not Superman by the end of the Man of Steel, which is
yes, I agree. He's Superman at this moment, like at that point, at this 50-minute mark, he is Superman.
He's Superman already. At that point. He's fully formed. Yeah.
Which I love that about it, but I still find it weird that he's like just cocooned there for like, just with his dad for company, and like he's like just a big floating crystal head, like just floating.
I think if you wanted to write a Young Avengers of Superman, you'd be able to pretend he wasn't just cocooned there.
Well, I assume that's what Superboy may have been. Maybe it's like
maybe, yeah. I
don't know.
I have no idea. Anyway, Daily Planet, we're introduced to the whole team. Golly is one of the first things you hear Superman say in this film, I think. Like, and it's kind of funny. You see Superman punch through the screen in that flying thing, and the next time you see him is Clark Kent, and he's a different character. He's like, Christopher Reeves has so much physicality over this performance. He's just he looks so different, and he looks so smaller and like weaker and softer.
You could actually believe that he was two different people.
You could, yeah. I mean, to a point.
To a point, yeah.
But you could, like,
in my opinion, it's a bit too over the top for me.
Sure.
But I think because you've got like Ned Beatty and Gene Hackman hamming it up as well, that it kind of
Ned
works.
Beatty sure hands up in this film. Like, God, he gets tiresome. I love Ned Beatty, but why would
Lex Luthor have him as his right hand?
I don't know.
Just bumbling around all the place.
Mr. Luthor. It's almost something because you see Kidder here, and they all immediately have chemistry. It's like the meet cute, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
he's she's like, you've already said it, she's fucking smart and great. And then the mugging scene is such a fucking good scene. Where like he's like, meek and Clark Kenty and stuff, and she just decides to beat up the mugger. Like, and as he shoots, he grabs the bullet out of the air and pretends to faint, and it's just wonderful. It's one of the best meet cutes in film, I think. Like,
it's when he pushes his glasses back up on his face.
Yes.
I like that little moment.
Yeah. Like, it's almost like the glasses have to slip off in this film if he does anything Supermanish. I always like that about it.
Is it Wonder Woman where they basically do this scene, but with the roles reversed, so it's like a female as the hero? I'm sure they do like a alleyway scene.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, I never saw that before, but you're right. Yeah, whatever. You get rampant crime as well in Metropolis. Did you notice this? There's a man stealing fruit in the background.
Yes, yeah, in the back. Yeah,
it's like the evil Metropolis that needs fixing. And then you get this weird Ned Beatty scene where he's trying to rob a paper
from a blind guy.
And then they're like, the cops are following him to try and find Luthor, who's got this really weird layout of an old subway station, I'm guessing. And they got this little funny little scene where Lex Luthor has like a booby trap in the subway that pushes the cop into like the train.
Yeah, weird.
So weird. Like, Luthor, to criticize this film, because I am loving it a little too much, to criticize this film, it's not about Luthor at all. Like, and Luthor is unimportant in this film. It doesn't matter. Like, the whole point of this film is Lois and Clark. It's a romance. Like,
100%.
You couldn't do it nowadays. Nowadays, superhero films, the villain has to be like, the superhero is only as good as the villain are in the modern films. Whereas it didn't matter here.
Luthor's a weird character because he's not 100% defined. Like, he's like America's best hope, and the reason why he doesn't like Superman is because he kind of like is the one, he's slightly racist or whatever, and he doesn't like the fact that someone from another planet is better
taking
than
over
him.
humanity's like progress and stuff.
Or you get the crazy scientist who's just hell bent on just destruction, or you kind of have this real estate obsessed Lex Luthor. You
get this kind of merge of like this businessman, like, President Luthor kind of stuff, this kind of like businessman element of him. Going back to All-Star Superman, my favorite thing about All-Star Superman is that it's all about his jealousy of Clark. Jealousy of Kal-El. The fact that like he constantly is yelling to Clark that you don't need Superman, I can save us. Like, I'm smart enough. If Superman wasn't here, I would be everyone would love me, kind of thing. And my favorite thing about like the last scene when like Lex Luthor is all powerful and stuff.
The guy that wants to be the hero ends up being the villain, which I kind of quite like. That
me too.
Of it.
And like, Superman says to him in All-Star Superman, is like, you could have saved the planet years ago if you cared. The problem is you don't care. You pretend you care. Like, and I think that's how to nail Luthor more than anything else. This film, I don't know. It's very 70s in the fact that he's calling himself the world's greatest supervillain. It's very Bond, like, villain in that way. Like,
it's really weird why they don't have him bald all the way through. He has different hair, like, that he obviously puts on for various different scenes.
I don't understand that. There's a story about Gene Hackman not wanting to shave his head for it.
No, it was a moustache. There was a moustache. He had a moustache, and
okay.
And Richard Donner says, will you shave the moustache? And he goes, no, I think I want to keep it. And then Richard Donner was like, okay, well, we start filming in 6 weeks. Just think about it, because I'd prefer it if you shaved it off. Came to the filming day, and he's like, and Richard Donner's grown a moustache at this point, and he goes, have you thought about the moustache? And he goes, no, I think I want to keep it. And he goes, look, I tell you what, you shave your moustache, and I promise you I'll shave mine. So he goes to the dressing room, Gene Hackman, and he shaves off his moustache. And then he gets to set, and Richard Donner's still got his moustache on. And he goes, but look, Rich, we had a deal, I shaved my moustache, so you got to shave yours. And then apparently he just peeled it off, and it was like an applied moustache just to trick him.
What?
Which I love.
That's great. I think he would look quite good in a mustache.
And like from listening to like the Richard Donner, I think almost comes from the old style of directing where it's more about people managing.
Okay.
And
yeah,
the
sure.
way he kind of like, it's not about his overall. Like obviously he had a vision, but you know like how now you've got filmmakers who've got this like razor focused vision, and like, or you got Wes Anderson who like all of his films at the same, or Christopher Nolan, all of their films at the same. I think Richard Donner was like, you know, he hires the best people for the job.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, yes, I like that, I like that, I like that. But he kind of, you know, lets them do their thing and just
do their job,
and just manages them. And like, you know, like I know he had disagreements with his editor all the time. He sacked the editor like 3 times on the film, and they're always up against each other and kind of like arguing and stuff like that. It was out of a place of respect and love.
Yeah,
and stuff like
It wasn't a toxic environment. It was just people had their opinion and they were fighting over what they believed in.
And like apparently he kept all the disagreements with the Salkinds away from the cast and crew just to kind of so they were like, so he was bearing all this stuff on top of him, and he was doing his best not to let it affect the actual performance and production, because obviously they'd all become friends by this point, and they'd probably it
sounds like a hell of a shoot as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, it was probably like a year-long shoot to do the 2 films back to back, and then apparently it was another year for Christopher Reeves just to do all the flying stuff.
The pre-production. Oh God. And moving on from that, like the villain takes a backseat here, and it cuts to what the best scene.
Can I ask though one thing? What is Miss Tess Mac? I can't pronounce her name.
Tess whoever. I don't know.
Like, what is her? Like, I understand that, you know, you have the femme fatale or whatever, but
she's not really a femme fatale.
She's not exactly. She just kind of just questions everything he does all the time and just kind of mocks him.
I don't get Luthor in this. I don't. Yeah. Like, he's a great portrayal of it. I think Gene Hackman's really good. Like, and almost one of the better. Like, he's better than bloody Kevin Spacey. But like,
wrong.
He's wrong. And he's better than whatever the fuck they were doing in Man of Steel.
Oh, yeah.
But like, it's, I don't know. There's no need to surround himself with bumbling stuff. Like, and there's no need to have him like so Batman, like Batman 66 villain.
He is. He's almost like in like surrounded by the bookshelves, and he's got like a little swimming pool in his little underground lair, and
they're playing him almost like Hannibal Lecterish as well, especially in number 2 when he's talking to the other prisoners and asking for his like classical music albums back and stuff like that. Like it's so weird. It's such an odd portrayal of him. That doesn't. It feels. The problem with it is like, I think they make Superman feel so realistic, and you believe a man can fly, but I don't quite believe this man is a villain. It like exists. Like, he's not.
I have a feeling when it came to the second one, Gene Hackman refused to film with Richard Lester.
Oh, okay.
I have a feeling that, like, so I don't know if he was meant to have more of a role in that film, and they kind of just used what they had.
I quite like his role in the second film, because he basically plays a go-between. He basically like he's using Zod to kind of kill Superman, but like at the end when like Superman wins, Lex Luthor's there going, "There, see, I was on your side the whole time," kind of stuff. Like, there's also the most ridiculous prison break with a hot air balloon as well in the second film. But it does get Ned Beatty out of the film. Ned Beatty's not in the rest of it.
Are we now at the point where he saves Lois from the helicopter?
Which, I love this bit. I love him get his coat stuck in the toilet. I love how like he's going up the lift. But it's the most iconic bit of the film. It's over an hour in, and we get to see Superman emerge, basically. Like, and it's great. There's a loose cable, and the helicopter starts spinning out of control. And I feel like Lois could be a little more, a little more kind of agency to herself, a little more.
I like the fact that on top of the building, they've got like a little airport, like for the helicopter, and it's even got like a little
waiting room
with a vending machine and all.
Yeah. Like, what world's this?
Is this the one where he jumps out the window and his suit just kind of appears on him, or is that later on?
No, this is such a long build up, and then like the airplane's spinning, and then you see Clark coming outside and like all bumbling, and everyone's looking up, and he slowly looks up and sees it. And this is the one when he rushes to a phone booth to change, but it's one of those modern phone booths, and it hasn't got like a door on it. So he runs across the road and he tears his shirt open and he runs into like the spinning doors of like the office building and comes out Superman. It's great. It's great. Like the music sells it, and like you've got me, who's got you is just a great line, and Margot Kidder absolutely sells. Like, and this is like the second meet cute. You've already had the Clark meet cute, and then you have the Superman meet cute, and it's Superman here is so like fuzzy and relaxed and like warm. Like everything Clark isn't at all. Like he's really smug, but he's really cheesy about it as well. And
the one thing we don't get in this film is so there's like 3 Clarks, isn't there? Really, you've got the Superman Clark, you've kind of got the Metropolis Clark, and then you've got the Smallville Clark.
Sure.
So Smallville Clark is probably him, who he really is, I guess.
I don't like those wording with that. That's a Quentin Tarantino thing.
I think that's the opposite. The Tarantino thing is that Superman is his real persona, and then he says that his Clark is how he views humans, that they're weak and feeble.
Yeah, it's what
so I don't agree
guess
with
what
that.
I'm saying is, I never see it as like anything's a disguise. Like I hate it when people are like Clark Kent's the disguise of Superman.
I don't think that. I just think that the Smallville version is when he's like his truest form, like when he's like
sure, but that's like more like he is with Lois alone. Yeah. So when it's just like Lois and him hanging out in the apartment once they're married and stuff like that, yeah, that's more him being relaxed. But I just don't. It's just this kind of I hate that like that's his view of humanity stuff or that's his good
yeah.
science.
No, I
it's just
agree.
Like,
I don't like that.
It's just coding, you know. Like it works with Batman a little better because Batman's a psychopath.
Yeah.
But like, Superman, it's just coding, and everyone has coding in their lives. You know, like you're a different person around your parents or your girlfriend's parents, or like, you know, when you're at work and stuff like that. Like, it's just normal. I don't like when people read too much weird.
But you're always your truest though when you're at home in your sweatpants and you fart
in
front of the TV. That's
in
your
pants. Yeah, like. What we get? Yeah, you get like a really extended flying scene here as well, which made me laugh. They're really just showing off the visual effects because he like he says bye to Lois, I'm a friend, bye, and then he just flies around for a bit doing things. So
the
kind
montage
of, like,
is my
catches
favourite bit though. Like you've kind of got the guy climbing up the skyscraper.
Yeah,
and, like,
yeah, the weird kind of like I don't know jewel thief.
Yeah, and he captures him. The little girl who then he saves the cat.
Saves the cat.
Then the little girl goes and she goes, I just met a man who could fly. And the mom slaps her.
And the mom slaps her. I was like, what is this? A nice bit of child abuse in my
Superman should have flown back in then. You just see the mom being kicked out of the house or something.
You should have.
Like Flintstones.
That's what 1930 Superman would have done. Straight in there, yelling at her.
That is a bad... What's that guy say? That is a badass suit.
That's a badass suit or something. Yeah. Then you get the plane crash, which the engine blows out and the plane's rocketing.
The one pilot's like, you won't believe what I'm seeing or whatever. And he's like,
he goes, what's happening? What's out there? And the pilot's like, just keep flying. Don't pay any attention to it. Don't worry about it. Like, which obviously they redo this plane crash kind of thing in Superman Returns.
Yeah, which is the only interesting bit of that film, I think.
Yeah, I've got a slight soft spot for Returns. I don't think it's quite as bad as I thought it was when I watched it again.
One thing, it's shot in 1080p, so it'll never look any better than that.
That's true.
And I think it was quite... I don't know if it's the encoding or the grading on the Blu-ray, but I think it looks quite muddy and a bit murky. And I don't like the Superman suit. He's got very small...
No, I don't like the suit.
And he's got a very tiny S and...
Yeah, he's got a really tiny
S. I think Brandon Routh is quite good.
I think Brandon Routh's great. Yeah, I do. Great casting.
Again, Lois Lane wasn't very good.
No,
I
didn't like Superman being like an absent parent. It's just a silly. Don't put it in there. Like it's just not needed. We don't need to think about this so much.
I liked Skeletor as Perry White.
Oh God, yeah.
But yeah, anyway,
Perry White gets a lot to do in this film as well.
I like him in this.
Yeah,
he's not the Lois and Clark one who was obsessed with Elvis. He's my favourite
one. From son-in-law.
Yeah.
What else? Plane crash. now Superman's big news, and he's all in the papers, and Perry White's really angry because it was in their building that Superman appeared, and they should get the top story and stuff like that. And so like Clark sets up a date in Lois's apartment, which is kind of funny.
Yes.
And that interview on the rooftop scene is just all flirting. Like it's just that's
like,
all it is.
What colour pants am I wearing? He's like, well, I can't see through lead. He's standing by a lead.
But Reeves, and then like when she walks away and he's like pink, and she's like what, and he's like and pink, and she's like, do you like pink?
And then she's like, he's like, smoking is bad for you, and she goes, what, lung cancer? And he scans her, like, not yet.
Don't tell me you're one of those lung cancer types. Yeah.
This is leading it to my least favourite part of the film, though.
Yeah, it is. But it's I love this bit. The chemistry's
great. I
wonderful.
love this bit.
Truth, justice, the American way, and the I never lie stuff. And then he takes her flying, which has been parodied 100 times.
I don't mind.
It is kind of great.
I don't mind him taking a flying. It's the fucking voiceover.
Yes. So like, basically, like, it goes on a little too long. The flying scene. She slips out of his hands at one point, and he zooms down to catch her, and that should have been the end of the flying scene. Except they have a very extended sequence where there is a soliloquy inside of Lois's head.
Well, I couldn't work out if he could read her mind. I'm like, have they created a new power for Superman where he can read her mind?
And it's I can't remember the term she keeps repeating, but basically this was a song in the original script, and Margot Kidder was meant to sing it.
Oh God.
Yeah, and so that's why the dialogue's really poetic, and it kind of rhymes, and it kind of has a weird like musicality to it, which I think makes it even weirder in the scene now, because it's just her saying words in her head that weirdly makes a poem.
I just think it's brutal. It's so painful.
It is brutal. It is, and it goes on and on. Like,
I can deal with cute faces looking at each other like, but like it's turned up to the max, and you're like,
well, that's it. That bit when he catches her again and holds her, and they look at each other at that point, perfect. Like they both are in love, and they're puppy dog eyes and whatever. End the scene at that point. It's fine. It didn't then need to do that for another 5 minutes.
Their hands get further and further apart until they're kind of basically holding hands.
Yeah.
I get that he's strong enough to hold her up.
With his finger.
She's got to still use her body strength
to hold
herself up. So she should just be flopping down, really.
Basically, yeah.
I don't understand why she's...
The way they treat... This is the same thing in Superman 2, which is one of the things I don't like about it. When like Superman 2 kind of he loses his power, he goes into a little chamber and loses his power. He loses his suit. He comes out of it dressed in like human clothes. Like there's some weird element to this where his suit is the special power. So it's almost like because he has the suit on, like it was like an aura around Lois Lane that allowed her to fly or something. It's so weird. Like,
wasn't in some comics that his suit has like a protective kind of...
I think it's been... I don't know if it's in the comics, but I think it's something fans have always joked about, in the fact that he has like an aura that means like that's why his suit doesn't get scratched.
Yeah, so it goes over his suit basically.
Yeah. Like he's glowing like a star.
Well, like as well, like the suit in well, at least the cape is what he was kind of shrouded in.
Yeah. So it could just be some... I just always think of it as some like great textile from the future planet, Krypton or something like.
Well, like in Man of Steel, it's kind of like the ambassador clothing, which when they're on the ship, you see like various different like suits, I think, and it's like that's one of them. And
though I am a big fan of Mark Kent sewing it.
That's my favourite thing in the New Adventures of Superman or Lois, where she makes the suit, and I love that. And I swear that show she makes one that looks like Captain America.
Oh, she might do, yeah, because they go through different, little gag.
Because it's
little Easter egg.
It's not a sitcom, but it's like a, it's like a.
It was a primetime drama, like rom-com, basically.
Yeah, and like they kind of hammed it up a bit. Apparently, the new show's called Lois and Clark, isn't it, or Lois? And...
Yeah, I think they're going for the same thing as well.
but I think it would probably take itself a little bit more seriously.
Which I think might be a mistake.
I think they go back to Smallville and they've got to take over the farm or something. Again, I'm not going to watch this show, so I don't know what I'm talking about it.
You just can't help knowing about it.
Yeah, it's just
Lois names him Superman.
Yeah, she does.
So Clark comes in now, and Lois names him Superman at this point, and this is, I think, one of the best bits that Reeves does now. So like, she walks in, she's like all giddy, and she walks into the bedroom, and he's on his own.
This is great. It's one shot. He flies off, and it follows her, and then he's at the door.
He's at the door, yeah. And the camera swings around to a mirror, and she goes into the bedroom, and watching Clark, he goes to tell her that he's Superman, and he straightens his back. He kind of puts his shoulders back. He takes his glasses off, and he looks completely different in that. Like, and the fact that you see it in that kind of just little kind of motion of his physicality, and a smug little grin or something, and he just looks like Superman again, even though he's wearing like a suit. And then he kind of stops himself, and he shrugs his shoulders back again, and they just go off for dinner. I love that little bit. I was just it just made me love like Reeves and watching Reeves really. Because he knew what he was doing with it. Lex, I think we cut to Lex now, and it's all about his jealousy and motivations and stuff. I don't know. There's not really much to say about Lex here.
It kind of goes back and forth now between like him setting up his plan to kind of try and get the
real estate plan,
and getting the codes to recoding the rockets or whatever.
Yeah, that's
which they do two different versions. The first one where like they fake a car crash and she's like outside of it, and then
they fake a car crash, and then Ned Beatty crawls into it and doesn't do it correctly.
Yeah.
So then the next one, Lex Luthor and Ned Beatty pretend to be like lost truckers.
That's it.
And she crawls up the bridge and climbs into the missile to reprogram it, doesn't she? It's a oddly placed humour. There's a bit where she's pretending to be in a crash and she's lying down.
Yeah, and then he's a paramedic, and
and all the troops are like leering at her and can't want to do like CPR and.
Well, no, it's the head when he goes, I better take this one, you know.
Yeah, I'm in charge. I need to grope her. Like, and all the troops like form a little wall around so no one can watch what's going on.
Yeah, it's weird.
Very weird. Very odd. Then after that, Luthor contacts Superman for. I like this bit with the little kind of like supersonic. Yeah, the only dogs in him can hear it. Luthor explains his whole plan. He's making a lot of money by making real estate on the West Coast. He's going to do a big earthquake on the San Andreas Fault. Classic stuff. Luthor's actually just distracting him now while it actually happens. And he sets off 2 missiles so he can't stop both of them. And he has kryptonite as well. So he has a little necklace of kryptonite that he hides in a box and throws on Superman, and then chucks him in a pool, and Superman starts drowning.
And like, there's a deleted scene which is actually in the extended version where there's like all rail guns and stuff like that shooting at him as he's making his way towards Luthor's lair, and they cut that out, and it's a shame because it looks really good. But
that's a shame, yeah.
I like it when he opens the door and then Luthor just goes, "Come on in, the door's open."
Yes, that's right. I forgot about that because I just keep thinking of Ned Beatty going, "I think he's here, Mr. Luthor. I think he's here, Mr. Luthor." It's good, and they're good together. Like, you know,
it's their only scene apart from the end when he like delivers them to the prison together. That's the only scene.
It's a shame. They do play off each other really well, though.
But I guess like that's the thing with these films. They only had Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman for like a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
So they probably could only have a certain amount of scenes with them together, I guess.
Yeah. Eve Tashamaker, her nan lives in Jersey, so she doesn't want the bomb to go off there. Or his mom, or whatever. And there's a very weird kiss scene here.
She kisses him before she takes off
before she takes off the thing. And he spends, instead of just like racing to save the bullets, he spends quite some time sitting and talking to Eve Tashamaker. And he kind of like, come on, like, you know, there's a missile coming. He promises to her that he'll save the East Coast one first because of her mom. So he does that and chucks the missile into space, and then we see like
it is a good sequence though where he kind of goes over. Is this the one where he goes over the train bridge and like he becomes part of
so you
tracks
see the impact of like the missile, and Superman he goes like into the Earth's crust first, and he's rebuilding the course somehow. I don't really know what he was doing there, but he
saves
somehow
Jimmy
like
Olsen as well.
Yeah. The school bus flies off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he saves that.
That's
and
all
the train...
model shots. It looks great though.
It looks great, doesn't it? I was going to say the bit with the dam is all just like models, and it's all just like.
Well, what's amazing about that is because the one thing you can't miniaturize is water.
Sure.
So it's got to be quite a big miniature to do that effect. Because you can't scale down water.
You can't scale down water. Yeah, you're right. The Hoover Dam collapses. He sits as the train line. He stops the explosion in the factory. He saves Jimmy Olsen from the Hoover Dam, and he stops the tidal wave in the little model from wiping out the neighborhood. It is obviously a model. You can tell it's a model, but it's just really great. I really loved it. But what he can't do is get to the car in time and save Lois. So like, then the car gets crushed in that huge fault, and she dies, which I think is kind of shocking that they actually do kill her.
Yeah.
In the first film, like, they give it time as well. Like, he's properly distraught and he's properly angry.
It's a good performance as well.
Yeah.
And I like him flying off, like, just fucked off.
Yeah, just fucked off. Yeah, and angry. You can kind of see it. It would have made a little more sense at the end of 2.
Yes.
To do this.
Because they would have built their relationship even more. And...
Yeah, and they would have known secret identity and stuff like that at that point and things.
We must point out as well at the beginning, like when the young Kal-El's on his way to Earth, there's like voiceover by Marlon Brando, and he's saying, do not mess with the Earth's history or whatever, something to that effect.
So I guess they set up the fact you can time travel, but
yes,
yeah, the time travel mechanic is the worst time travel mechanic in any film. It's ridiculous.
Well, it doesn't make sense because then technically he hasn't fixed the other
things.
Yeah, so he's undone everything he's done, and only say, I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. Yeah,
doesn't make sense.
I guess it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. All he would do by flying the planet backwards would like basically tear the planet apart. I don't think that's healthy for a planet. But whatever. It's. I think everyone jokes about this now and remembers that. But like, him kind of getting to Lois and then like Margot Kidder like chewing him out there and yelling at her, like, yelling at him. That's good. Like, and it cements that relationship more, I think.
Jimmy has the audacity to have a go at Superman for leaving him in the middle of nowhere as well. Do you know who?
Like he's a taxi service.
You know who else? What else he's in? Young Jimmy Olsen.
I know what.
He's Marty McFly's brother in Back to the Future.
Oh my god, he fucking is. He is. Oh, I always wear a suit to the office, Mark.
Yeah.
A line that's always in my head, like always in my head. I thought I recognised him. I can't believe I never put that together before. The film basically just wraps up here. He drops Lex Luthor off at prison, and it just ends. Really? Yeah,
the warden has no idea what Luthor has done. And he's like,
and if he turned back time, did he do anything? Or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
But whatever. Theme ends and flying, and it ends. And I still think it's pretty great. I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. It's not perfect.
It's not perfect at all, but I think it's like I don't think it's aged that well, but I think what saves it is Reeves' performance and Margot Kidder's and the music. I think those are timeless things that you can't take away from this film. And like
I think
Christopher Reeves kind of, I wouldn't say he is Superman still to many people today.
To this day, yeah.
And it's just a shame ridiculous. What happened to him in like '95, where he fell off.
Sure, he had an accident. Yeah.
And like, there's a sad comment on the making of documentary, because at the time of making that documentary, they were Christopher Reeve was still alive, and he's like in the interviews and stuff.
Okay.
And Dick Donner goes, I once believed that, Christopher Reeves made me believe that a man can fly, and I believe he'll walk again. And it was quite sad, sad hearing that. And obviously, Margot Kidder as well. She had quite
a rough time, with mental health and drugs and stuff like that. I think she was homeless at one point. And stuff. Really sad. It's a sad little note to the end of this film that of what happened, really. But it's a shame. It got nominated for Academy Awards, won Best Visual Effects, but it didn't get nominated for Best Film, which I think that's a misstep for this year. I think almost any of the other nominations you could replace Superman with it. That's a classic kind of Academy thing, really, which they still struggle with doing. But it's good. I think what was striking when I was watching it, what I was thinking about, was the fact that this film was made 40 years after the origins of Superman, in 38. We're literally 40 years beyond this film.
Yeah.
So we're as far away from this film as this film was to the origins of Superman. Insane. And it's insane that it still kind of holds up. As you say, it has not totally stood the test of time, but it's still probably the best Superman thing that we have. And it changes Superman as much as any other thing did. The legacy of Superman, or what we think of Superman, and Christopher Reeve's performance and stuff like that.
Well, I think the problem is
big impact.
So the first two acts of this film are almost like a film in itself.
Yeah.
And then the other act is like a film in itself, but it's all kind of rushed together. Well, the last, let's say it's rushed because you've still got an hour and a half of their romance and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel fully paid off by the end of the film. And I guess that's because they knew they had the second film.
Yeah, that's because they didn't write it as one film. Yeah, and I think it's Donner's credit that this film works.
Yeah,
really, it's it's his pushing to get something on screen and making sure that it kind of stood up.
I think he was fired after the release of the film, so they saw how successful it was, and then they fired him after that. And the writer claims that he reckons that if the film wasn't successful, they would have hired him to finish it off.
Maybe. And the stuff that I have watched the Donner cut, I don't think it works for Superman 2. I'm not a massive fan of it. It's the reason because there isn't a complete film to make. That you can't do a Donner cut because they didn't film everything he wanted to film.
Yeah, so it uses some Lester footage and stuff.
It uses Lester. Well, I don't know if it actually uses any Lester footage, but because it doesn't use any Lester footage, it kind of doesn't work. Well, because it's still empty. I don't know.
Did they put the ending of the first one at the end of that one?
No, but they don't. There's stuff they don't have it in it. I won't be able to remember off the top of my head. It's different, but they didn't recut it entirely how it would have been done.
Right. Okay.
It's like a cut of an unfinished film, really, is what the Donner cut was for me.
Okay.
And you get echoes of, it would have been a better film, I think, is really what you get from it, but not much. And it's just the thing about Superman 2, the beats of it doesn't work, the pacing of it doesn't work so much.
I mean, the fight in Metropolis is pretty cool.
It's wonderful, I love it.
But I hate the fight they have in the Fortress of Solitude, and he for some reason he pulls off his S, and it's like a saran wrap, S, and he
which
throws
is that's not in the Donner cut,
and it wraps around. That's totally like a Richard Lester kind of gag.
Yeah.
It's
weird
because Superman 3 is just it's if I remember, Lois Lane is only in the beginning bit of that film, and she's written out of it, and
yep.
And it's almost
it's
one big long joke film. It's more of a vehicle for the comedian. What's his name?
I would have told you what his name was up until a second ago.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
And they do the whole Office Space kind of thing, and
that film. It's as far as I understand it, basically everyone was so pissed off that Donner was fired that most of the cast didn't want to do it. So that's why Margot Kidder and that doesn't really get any time in it. Reeves didn't have much choice, but really they had Richard Pryor on to do a film, and they wanted to do a film with him.
Well, I think he basically was on a Tonight Show kind of thing, and someone asked him, said, "What do you want to do next?" He goes, "Oh, I want to be in Superman." So they heard that, and they're like, "Right, let's make him like the main character then."
And there's almost something I can credit them for is the fact that they just went so like a buddy comedy for like the third film is so kind of out there that I kind of respect it in a little weird way. But the film's awful. The film's goddamn awful. I was going to say the only reason they made 4 is because they gave Christopher Reeve writing.
Yeah, he came with the story, didn't he? And he's like, I want to solve nuclear war.
Yeah. And in a lot of ways, 4 shows a lot more promise, but 4 was such a mess of production. It's more mess than anything else that you can imagine.
Well, I think their budget was just slashed in like a third.
Yeah.
Like, because they did a film called Raise the Titanic that I think like took all their money, and they basically couldn't give it to Superman then. Which, going back, that was Bo Cannon Films, who were kind of like reckless filmmakers, a bit like the Salkinds kind of, and Salkinds just sold the rights to them. And
they kept on slashing the budget whilst shooting. Stuff was like written to be shot, and it wasn't actually filmed and stuff like that. Like it was cobbled together as a plot, as like a film at the end of it.
And I think Metropolis is like his Wales. They shot in Wales or something like that.
It's really
something like that. Like you go from New York City to Wales as you like, as your setting, and then like there's a bit where I think I haven't seen this film, but I know there's a bit where he fixes the Chinese wall, the Great Wall of China, and he does it with his mind.
Yeah. There's a bit where he pushes the Leaning Tower pizza back up
into a street.
It's really funny. I thought this about when I was watching Superman 2 with the Statue of Liberty, not that the Eiffel Tower. There's this thing about like the opening of globalism in like the 70s and 80s, where like every country gets melted down to a landmark.
Yeah,
like and
Big
like
Ben.
Yeah, Big Ben and Leaning Tower Pizza is one of those things that was in every fucking cartoon that we watched as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like, it had to be in it. Like, and the Great Wall of China had to be in it and stuff. It's like we'd learnt about the world, but we hadn't really learnt about it. We just learnt that there were things about that we can recognise. And writers just were like, oh yeah, Leaning Tower Pizza, that's Italy. Like, we've got Italy in there now. It's so funny how like we don't do that anymore. Like, I wonder when the last time the Leaning Tower was in anything.
Mars Attacks probably or something. I don't know.
Probably, yeah. Whereas it was one of those things. It was like drowning in quicksand. It was like, I know that Leaning Tower Pizza is really important. It's one of those important monuments that exists in the world.
So, like, I know after 3 they did Supergirl, didn't they? But they also did the Santa Claus movie. Which,
they did.
If you watch that film, it's basically kind of Superman.
Why?
If you watch, like, Lex Luthor is basically John Lithgow. He's kind of and, even the flying sequences, I think they probably even use shots from Superman that they kind of just put the bloody sledge on over the top, and that film is treated like a superhero origin. It's really bizarre.
You're right. It's very bizarre, and it's got. Is it Dudley Moore that's in it?
Yeah, so Dudley Moore kind of replaces your Richard Pryor in that one. And
Richard Pryor, yeah.
It's like the comedy kind of...
Weird films.
Yeah.
So what's your ranking or any final thoughts? Or anything?
Well, this is a film that it wasn't like, for me, a Ghostbusters or a Star Wars and that I watched a lot when I was a kid. Like I said, I'd watch the third one or the second one. It was on telly a lot, but... So I don't really have like a great deal of nostalgia for it, but I do enjoy it. But I'd probably say it's a 3.5 for me.
That's fair.
But I do enjoy it.
I think I'm a 4.
Yeah.
I think I'm a flat 4, really. It's I really liked coming back to visit it again. Like, actually. I'm glad that we did it because it is totally a film that for me exists in my head more than me knowing it. And I saw, like, as I said earlier, I confused 1 and 2 in my head massively. So it was nice to kind of sit down and watch it as a complete film, really, and experience that. And I was surprised in how much stuff got to me, like the chills in the back of my neck when he runs across the street and pulls his shirt open and stuff, and the themes building and things, and Pa Kent dying and stuff. I was surprised how much stuff was working for me, even if it's a little hokey by today's standards, probably.
Yeah, I mean, at that time though, this was probably like, as far as big budget films go, it's probably very kind of taking itself very seriously, even though you still have the bumbling Ned Beatty and stuff like that.
I mean, it was the biggest film at the time.
Yeah, I think it was. I know it was Warner Brothers' biggest film. For
Yeah,
many
it was
years.
the most expensive film ever made for quite a time.
What was the budget on it?
50, almost 60 million, I think.
Wow, really?
Which is incredible. Like, and it shows. I mean, it's an epic, and it does hold up enough. You know, like, whereas there's nothing other superhero stuff from this time that holds up.
I wonder how much of that money. So it says 55 million, but I wonder how much Superman 2.
Good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that breaks down. Yeah, it's true.
But it always seems the case with Superman that the production, like, there's so much pre-production earlier on that costs hundreds of thousands, millions of pounds. Like, you know, we're talking about the Tim Burton one. They even built sets and costumes, and they were literally ready to start filming. But I think what may have stopped that was like a actor strike or some sort of strike may have.
I thought it was one of the writer strikes or something. Yeah,
and then after that, kind of they just thought, "Nah, fuck it." But like, I'm pretty sure they were building sets and all kinds of stuff for that, and like, you know, so by the time that
photography.
So by the time that Superman Returns came out, they'd already spent many millions, which kind of went into the cost of.
Oh, it still counted, didn't it? Yeah. So Superman Returns was something like 300 million.
Because it's technically still the same production, because the same people. Like, I think the producer was the guy who did Batman, and I've forgotten what his name is.
Yeah.
And I think he somehow got the rights into Superman and had his idea of what Superman was, and he's like, apparently he said, "I don't want Superman to fly because it's too faggy," and it's like. Not my words, his words.
Sure.
Like
it was no suit, no tights, no flying, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's like, well, you've just taken away everything from Superman.
Or no cape or something. Yeah, it's dumb. I think was what I was trying to get through by doing a bit of the history up until this film of the serials and stuff like that is the fact that the rights of this ownership of this thing is messy as hell, and it's one of the only characters that exists like that. Like this is a new thing that these characters exist in copyright for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
This was never a thing before. You know, it's not been a problem with any other book or anything. This is a Superman thing. Like, and you know, Batman little less, but really Superman has been like such a kind of, I don't know, hot potato to be thrown around between different studios and different like people and different like families and stuff. And there's so much like personalities in that I think anytime they come to do Superman, there's like a fight.
Well, like the creators weren't even acknowledged for many years, were they? And,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It was it's only fairly
it, yeah.
recently that they kind of got their names on the films, and
the court case that went to their favour was only like 2004 or 5 or something like that. And I remember at the time in geek circles, they were really anti them because they thought it was going to take Superman away from them, like kind of thing. And it's like these people, as we said earlier, they got 130 quid for this character, and that's it. That's all their family ever got for this character.
I guess at the time they were like, you know, it was just a job for them. But you have to reward. I think you still have to, if someone does some, regardless of whether you pay someone for their job. I think if something is successful and has gained you a lot of money, you owe them some respects, or you owe them something, because without them doing that, you wouldn't have it. And I think,
well, it's like I didn't go into it as well, but this wasn't a job they were hired to just do a comic for. They weren't like, because this was a character they had been writing between themselves for like I think since 1933, so it was even 5 years or so that they've been writing stuff.
So they were just excited to be able to give them the opportunity
to do it, to get their character out there. I think the original story was called Reign of the Superman, and he was not the Superman we see today, but by like a little later, there's sketches where like the Superman character comes through, you know, until they got it into Action Comics. So it's not fair to say like that DC should be able to be the only ones to profit from that, and it is fair that at least eventually they got, you know, some credited that they had a huge influence on this.
I think it's changed now, but several years ago, I think it was almost the case of they had to have a Superman film in production at some point, or constantly in production, because otherwise they'd lose
rights to
the rights, which I think DC fully own it now. I have a feeling.
Yeah, I think it was part of the court case with the Schuster and Siegel.
But yeah, definitely at a point. That's why they constantly kept having one in production. So be it the Tim Burton one, or the J.J. Abrams one, or the McG one, or whatever
the
one.
The McG one, yeah. Yep. And I want to see more Superman, and like I want to see Henry Cavill do a Superman script that's written for Superman. I want to see it. Like
who do you think would make a good Superman film? Like, who's a filmmaker that could?
That's such a good question.
Like,
honestly, what's his face? Oh, I can't remember his name. Right, Rian Johnson would probably nail it.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, fans fucking hate him, don't they?
Yeah, but fans can go fuck themselves.
But like, I agree. I think he could do it, and I think me and you both feel the same way about Rise of Skywalker. I think a lot.
Sure.
Not Rise of Skywalker. Sorry, Last Jedi.
Last Jedi.
But we do feel the same way about Rise of Skywalker as well. But like, I think fans were misguided in that. Like, personally, I think they kind of took the wrong message away from that film.
Yeah, and they just wanted fan service.
Yeah,
which is most people in and that's
Well, most of them though, for that fucking end scene of Rogue One when Vader's going all, which is my least favorite scene.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's cool as fuck, but yeah.
But no, I think that's a really good shout. I think I'd love to see a Rian Johnson.
I think what I like about Rian Johnson is he brings a lot of humanity to the films.
Yeah.
Like Knives Out, Looper, Brick. There's a lot of like kind of like grounded elements to it, in the same way with his Star Wars. Like Luke Skywalker felt like a real character in Last Jedi. Like and he felt well-rounded and stuff, much better than any on the sequel. And I think bringing that humanity to a picture is what you want for Superman.
Yeah, definitely.
Rather than just the visuals, which I think that's the problem with Zack more than anything else.
Yeah. Agreed. Right then, it might be a couple of weeks until we record again because I'm busy with work.
Yeah, we got some messy schedules
as well. But what's happening next then with the podcast?
Yes, so we've finished up with our 1970s series, and we're going to start a new miniseries. We've decided to jump again in the back and go back another 20 years. So we're going to go to the 1950s. Which will be crazy for me, like, because we're talking a definite different era of movies now. Compared, like, 70s is still kind of modern filmmaking. It's just the dawn of it. 50s is different type of filmmaking. So I think it'd be really interesting. I'm really looking forward to it, and I do have quite a love for 50s films, the ones I know of. So kind of looking forward to it. But we're going to start with the 1950 film Rashomon.
Awesome.
Which should be absolutely fucking cool, because I've only ever seen Seven Samurai, so my Kurosaga's lacking. So like, I'm really.
I think we're still going to do like a little wrap-up show, like a little bonus one of like our awards for this series. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Like doing another series of films for another decade. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah,
but
it'll be fun.
Yeah. So as always, good chatting to you, and thank you everyone for listening. Don't forget, if you can, please rate and review and subscribe to us on whatever platform you listen to. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon. Is it Amazon Music?
Amazon Music.
Yeah. What's the other one we're on? YouTube. Yeah, we're on YouTube.
Yeah,
you can reach
Stitcher.
Stitcher. You can reach out to us on Twitter. We are at Adjust Your Track